Chapter 114. The situation suddenly changed. A strange wind swept Xiao Zhijiang up and flew into the depths of the tunnel. Shun Lian put away the crimson flame saber and chased after him. After a while, he came to the end of the tunnel and suddenly broke into a room that looked like a secret chamber. This room was connected to 8 tunnels. The tunnel he had just walked through was only one of them. Xiao Zhijiang's whereabouts were unknown. He could be in any of the other 7 tunnels. At this time, the wind stopped. The terrifying wind disappeared as if it had never appeared. The 8 dark passageways were unusually quiet and cold. Shun Lian narrowed his eyes slightly. It's true that the wind leaves no trace. He lost Xiao Zhijiang and couldn't determine which tunnel the strange wind had taken Xiao Zhijiang to. Based on my feelings, Shun Lian looked around and didn't hesitate too much. He chose a tunnel and rushed in. This tunnel made him feel even colder. Crack, crack, crack. After running for a dozen meters, Shun Lian suddenly heard a strange sound under his feet. When he scanned with his divine sense, his expression changed drastically. There were skeletons everywhere. They were all human skeletons, and there were countless of them. The white bones seemed to have been completely weathered and shattered with one step. The more Shun Lian walked forward, the more skeletons there were. Some of the skeletons were very small and probably belonged to children. They were piled together with the skeletons of adults. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At this time, a strange wind blew. The strange wind blew through the skeletons, shuttled through the empty eyes of the human skulls, and swept across Shun Lian's body. Wind of resentment and anger. The wind carried a mournful voice. Suddenly, all the blood in Shun Lian's body flowed backward, and his emotions surged. Resentment and anger almost drove him crazy. Resentment and anger are the actions of a weak. I am not a weak person. Shun Lian's eyes narrowed. The dragon-heart venomous insect throbbed, and his blood flowed smoothly through his body. His mighty aura spread around, and his emotions gradually calmed down. It seems that I'm on the right path. Continue forward, charge. Shun Lian smiled coldly and ran forward. After a while, another strange wind blew. The wind was so warm that people couldn't help but want to yawn and sleep. Taste the wind of indolence. A woman was shrieking in the wind. Lazy? In front of my powerful will, you can't even stand a single blow. Shun Lian was a martial arts madman. His willpower was as firm as a rock, unshakable. He just shook his head and charged forward again. Raging hurricane. In the next moment, a ferocious hurricane swept over. Shun Lian was not afraid at all. He pointed his wind-chasing sword forward, and a 3-inch flying sword shot out, striking into the hurricane. With a loud bang, the hurricane collapsed and dispersed. Shun Lian was unstoppable, and he closed in step by step. Dizzying wind, freezing wind, fiery wind. Whether it was the real wind or the void wind, it could not do anything to Shun Lian. With his strong body and the snake jade venomous insect's defense, he was able to resist all kinds of wind-type attacks. Not long after, he rushed out of the tunnel and broke into a hall. About 10 feet away, in the flickering fire, a young woman was sitting on a skeleton throne. She was tall and had exquisite facial features. Her beauty was impeccable. Her eyes were as cold as ice. Her eyebrows were curved like crescent moons, and her skin was fair and flawless, revealing a faint pink. Her thin lips were as delicate and tender as rose petals, as if she was a peerless beauty who had walked out of an ancient painting. At first glance, people would mistakenly think that they were looking at an otherworldly fairy. This was naturally the Wind Demon. Wind Demon looked at Shun Lian indifferently, and Shun Lian also looked at her. Someone is coming. Is she here to save us? Help! Hero, please save us. On the other side of the hall, there was a prison cell with many people inside. Shun Lian's eyes narrowed. He roughly counted that there were at least 60 people, including men, women, and children. Wind Demon glanced at the prison cell, and suddenly everyone was silent. Master, Xiao Zhijiang, who was lying in front of Wind Demon, seemed to have grasped the last life-saving straw. As soon as he saw Shan Lian, his dim and unfocused eyes lit up, and his expression became crazy. His face was full of resentment. Master, quickly kill Shan Lian. Look at what he has done to me. Xiao Zhejiang spat out blood and shouted weakly, with a gloomy and ferocious smile on his face. Shut up, you useless piece of trash. Wind Demon glanced at Xiao Zhejiang indifferently, and then stared coldly at Shan Lian. Answer me. Are you here for me? Don't answer. Don't answer. Don't answer. In the prison cell, someone suddenly shouted crazily. What are you shouting for? If anyone dares to shout again, I will eat him tonight. Wind Demon glared at the prison cell with murderous intent. The crazy person trembled and shrank in the corner, still muttering those words. Wind Demon turned his head and stared at Shan Lian, saying coldly, Did you break into the Black Tiger stockade just to find trouble with Xiao Zhejiang? Or are you here for me? Shan Lian glanced at the prison cell, and his mind moved. He raised his chin and said coldly, Is this important? I found your hiding place and the unspeakable secret between you and Xiao Zhejiang. You won't allow me to leave alive, will you? Wind Demon shook his head and said, I am the wind of freedom, and I don't like to settle down. The world is vast, and I can come and go as I please. The reason why I stayed in the Black Tiger Mountain is that the Black Tiger Cave is a treasure place for hiding wind and gathering qi, which helps me grow and evolve. Counting the days, I've been cultivating here for 36 years. It's time for me to leave. As for Xiao Zhejiang, 36 years ago, I came to the Black Tiger Mountain and slaughtered the entire stockade. Xiao Zhejiang was just a small fry at that time. He begged me not to kill him and was willing to serve me as his master. He promised that he would capture many people to show filial piety to me in the future, so I spared his life. Over the years, he has offered me hundreds of livestock every year, and I have also helped him improve his strength. He has enjoyed all the glory and wealth we both need. But whether he lives or dies in the future has nothing to do with me. So, you didn't find my hiding place, nor did you find any unspeakable secret. Whether you came for me or not, it decided whether I should kill you or not. Shan Lian said domineeringly, So, you are sure that you can kill me at any time. Since you have turned into a human form, I will teach you a lesson. Don't be too confident, especially in front of me. Interesting, I haven't met such an arrogant beast like you for a long time. Wind Demon sneered, Don't be complacent. The wind that attacked you just now was just a small matter, and you seem to have not realized a very cruel fact until now. Oh, tell me about it. My original form is the wind, invisible and traceless. I can't be hurt, let alone killed. I am an immortal existence, and you are made of flesh and blood. I can kill you with a breath. Wind Demon said indifferently. Shan Lian raised his eyebrows and sneered, My life is very tough. No matter how heavy your breath is, it can't kill me. Humph, you won't cry until you see the coffin. Then I will let you see the power of the wind of corrosion. Wind Demon smiled coldly, stood up, and blew a breath toward Xiao Zhejiang, who was lying on the ground. Master, no. Xiao Zhejiang was terrified. When the breath came, he felt that it was just a warm wind, but his body quickly dried up. His flesh and blood disappeared, and his bones melted. Soon, he turned into a pool of thick water. Seeing this scene, Shan Lian couldn't help but tighten his body. The wind of corrosion is just one of my abilities. I am Wind Demon, and I control all the wind in the world. I have thousands of ways to kill people. It's as easy as turning my hand. Wind Demon said calmly, Answer me. Do you really want to be my enemy? Such a powerful wind. Why didn't you use it just now? Shan Lian's eyes flashed, but he was as calm as water. Let me guess. The wind of corrosion is a close-range attack. You have to get close to me, right? Ridiculous. I am the wind. Who could be faster than me? Wind Demon suddenly got up from the skeleton throne, turning into a series of afterimages and approaching. Shan Lian jumped away directly, raised his sword, and slashed horizontally. The invisible sword chi swept past Wind Demon's waist and flew to the distance. Wind Demon's body was separated from the top and bottom, but it reunited in the next moment. She was unscathed and chased again. Physical attacks are ineffective. Shun Lian didn't believe it. The wind-chasing sword immediately shook out a mysterious sword flower. The sword flower exploded in midair, turning into a rain of bullets that swept toward Wind Demon. Puff! 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 Wind Demon was instantly riddled with holes. Even her head was pierced through by the rain of bullets. She didn't look like a human anymore. Very powerful sword technique. If other demons were here, they would have been covered with wounds. The old demon and Qi Lian can die in your hands. Wind Demon shook her delicate body, and all the holes on her body disappeared in an instant. She returned to her original appearance as if nothing had happened. Tricky. I still have a trump card that can definitely hurt her. Should I use it? Shun Lian thought to himself. He stared coldly at Wind Demon as his thoughts flashed. You are at your wit's end. Wind Demon sneered. Answer me. Did you come alone or with other companions? Take a guess. Shun Lian's body surged with light, and the snake jade membrane emerged. He decided to use another killer move. He rushed out and rushed toward Wind Demon. You are courting death. Wind Demon was overjoyed. The man and the demon rushed at each other, and Wind Demon immediately spewed out the wind of corrosion. Chi chi chi. In an instant, the snake jade membrane flashed violently, and a large part of it was corroded and melted. Boundless pain came. What a powerful wind of corrosion. The snake jade membrane won't last long. Shun Lian was shocked. His aura suddenly soared, and the disaster Dharma idol appeared above his head. It was a behemoth that was half scorpion and half snake. Its whole body was wrapped in black flames. The flames burned fiercely, sweeping the world and roaring in the universe. Now the disaster Dharma idol is not complete. It can't leave the body. It can only attack at close range. Shun Lian gritted his teeth and endured the pain. The disaster Dharma idol looked down at Wind Demon and spewed out a beam of destructive black flames. It burned the sky and boiled the sea and burned the world. It directly penetrated Wind Demon's forehead. Disaster Dharma idol, divine soul attack. Any monster, no matter whether it was tangible or intangible, could only become a monster after it had gained sentience. This meant that all monsters had souls. Soul attacks could harm monsters. Sure enough, Wind Demon flew out with a scream as if she had been hit hard. Blood spurted out of her mouth. Are you still worried about not being able to find the latest chapter? Amway public number r/d/444 or search heat/degree web text. Chapter 115. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, Wind Demon suddenly jumped into the air. Wind Demon die. Shun Lian, who was full of murderous intent, opened his sleeve, and then the sky-devouring sword appeared in his hand. The sky-devouring sword rapidly expanded and continued to grow. Suddenly, it became more than 30 feet long. There was twisted black thunder rolling and bursting out of the sword. It stabbed straight, caught up with Wind Demon, and pierced through her chest. Crackle. The black thunder arc raged in Wind Demon's body. The destructive power was extremely violent. The wound on Wind Demon's chest continued to expand, forming a charred black hole. The sky-devouring sword with Wind Demon in it smashed down and shrank. Shun Lian flew over, and the Dharma idol of disaster pounced on her, wanted to give her another stab. Damn beast. Wind Demon's eyes were wide open. She shook her body and turned into a whirlwind. Whistling, she escaped from the sky-devouring sword. The whirlwind rushed into the tunnel. She actually ran away. Shun Lian, just you wait. I will take revenge for this. In the tunnel, there was a mournful and resentful roar. Shun Lian squinted coldly, and the corners of his mouth were full of disdain. The next time we meet, I will be stronger. Shun Lian was confident that he could defeat Wind Demon, but the Dharma idol of disaster had been exposed in front of her. He didn't know if she had seen it or even recognized the Dharma idol of disaster. This was also the reason why Shun Lian hesitated to use this trump card before. Hey, what's that? While thinking, Shun Lian suddenly found a ring left behind where Xiao Zhijiang died. The corrosive wind had melted his body and clothes, but this thing was not destroyed. It must be a treasure. Shun Lian's eyebrows flickered. He walked over and picked it up. Without looking at it carefully, he put it in his bag and then walked to the cell. Hero, help! When the imprisoned people saw Shun Lian beat Wind Demon away, their desperate eyes suddenly regained vitality, and they all cheered. Don't worry, I'll let you out right away. With a flash of sword light, the iron chain broke and fell to the ground. The cell door immediately opened. Thank you for saving our lives, Hero. Hero, you're the best. Hero, you've saved both our lives. If you'd arrived a day earlier, my child's father, those who were released were crying tears of joy. Some were dancing, some were crying, and some were kneeling in front of the Shun Lian, kowtowing incessantly. Get up. I've chased the Wind Demon away. You're safe and free. Come with me, Shun Lian said with a smile. He glanced at the crazy man who was still curled up in the corner. He was as thin as a match and had lost his spirit. Only he had not realized that he had been saved. You too, carry that person out. We'll all go out together, Shun Lian ordered. Then, he led the 50 to 60 people through the tunnel and returned to the main hall of the Black Tiger Stockade. Wu Yinzong stood guard in front of the gate. The city gate continued to release crossbow bolts, and more than 100 bandits gathered in front of the gate, attacking the light shield with knives. Wu Yinzong, who focused on defense and not on offense, could not do anything to the bandits, but the bandits could not hurt him either. They could not even break through the gate. They were in a deadlock. Wu Yinzong, what are you waiting for? Release the signal, Shun Lian said lightly. Wu Yinzong turned around and was pleasantly surprised. He knew that the elder was invincible and Xiao Zhijiang was no match for him. Yes, Wu Yinzong's face flashed with great awe. He immediately took out a firework and raised it to the sky. With a whoosh, a dazzling light shot into the sky and exploded. Outside the Wind Howl Valley, the 800 martial artists who were hiding suddenly looked up at the sky. The three-colored firework was dazzling in the sky. The signal is here. Kill! Everyone rushed into the Wind Howl Valley with swords and sabers. The wind in the valley strangely disappeared, so they were naturally unimpeded. After a while, they arrived in front of the bandit stockade's gate. At the same time, Shun Lian and Wu Yinzong were killing their way out of the gate. Mere mortal bandits were simply not a match for the Gu Masters and were scared witless. Those bandits fled down the mountain in panic, but they met the 800 martial artists head-on. It immediately turned into a crushing massacre. 2 hours later, the 3,000 bandits entrenched in the Black Tiger Stockade were all slaughtered. Everyone searched the entire stockade and found the place where the 3-life stone was mined. Under Shun Lian's instructions, they destroyed the mine and finally set fire to the Black Tiger Stockade. Only then did they leave in high spirits. On the way back, the people who were imprisoned in the cells told each other about their experiences after talking with each other. It turned out that they were all robbed by the Black Tiger Stockade and offered to the Wind Demon. We were all captured in the past month. Before us, there were many people in that prison cell. They were villagers from a small village and were all captured by the Black Tiger Stockade. Later, the Wind Demon was hungry and ate all of them. He kept us as snacks and ate 3 to 5 of them every day. Talking about what happened during this period of time, these survivors had lingering fears and trembled nonstop. The martial artists from New Kuan were also incomparably cold. Who would have thought that the bastard from the Black Tiger Stockade would actually rely on the demons and rob humans as food for the demons? It was simply outrageous and heinous. Besides, this is a loophole. If it is a demon calamity, New Kuan would have detected it early and taken countermeasures. But if it is a bandit robbery, then it is the Imperial Court's duty, and we generally don't care. New Kuan's people sighed and mourned for those who had died. What about that slightly crazy person? Shun Lian was most concerned about that crazy person who was shouting and screaming. He kept repeating the words, "Don't answer." We don't know him. He was captured alone. It was a pity that no one knew the identity of this crazy person. Someone recalled something and told Shun Lian, He is different from us. We were captured by the mountain bandits, but he was captured by the wind demon. It was the wind demon who threw him into the prison cell. The wind demon even said something like, "Your junior apprentice sister is soft and tender. She tastes good." Well, this person's identity is not simple. Shun Lian asked people to take special care of that crazy person. They returned to New Kuan without any incident. The whole process of this operation was sorted out and sent to Man Boyu, Kong Yu, and the elders. The wind demon. New Kuan's higher-ups were collectively shocked and in an uproar. After all, she was the infamous wind demon, an existence that couldn't be killed. The Fury Kuan gang had been defeated repeatedly. Later, they didn't dare to provoke her anymore. They let her hunt and eat wantonly once every 9 years. They hated her so much that they couldn't do anything. Everyone either looked at the document alone, pondered silently, or gathered together to discuss. In Kong Yu's room, Bien Chanyu came. "Elder Bien, did you see that?" As expected of younger brother Shun. Even the wind demon was not his opponent. Kong Yu laughed and was in a very good mood. "Younger brother Shun, alas, you are in the limelight again." Bien Chanyu smiled, but there was a massive worry between his eyebrows. In Gong Sun Ji's room. What? Shun Lian defeated the wind demon. Could it be that he was bragging and lying about his achievements? Holding the document in his hand, Gong Sun Ji's face was full of doubts. He admitted that Shun Lian was powerful, but Shun Lian faced the wind demon, who could not be injured or killed. How did Shun Lian defeat the wind demon? How was it possible? In the room, Yuan and Rongchun were also there. The three of them were still hugging each other tightly. At this moment, Yuan and Rongchun were also surprised and doubtful. After thinking about it, they thought of a possibility. The wind demon has no form. Only soul attacks can cause damage to it. In other words, Shun Lian had a soul attack type goo. This kid hid his strength well. The more Gong Sunji knew about Shun Lian, the more shocked he was. Unfathomable. Yuan and Rongchun were also shocked, speechless. In the gang leader's study room, Man Boyu threw the document on the desk, and there was deep fatigue on his face. "I thought Xiao Zhijiang could defeat Shun Lian, but I didn't expect. Xiao Zhijiang had the wind demon behind him, and even the wind demon could not do anything to Shun Lian." This made Man Boyu feel terrified, and his scalp went numb. After a while, Balinkong came. Gang leader. Man Boyu squeezed out a smile and asked, "Ling Kong, how is your refinement of the 3 puppet demon soldiers?" Balinkong replied indifferently, "The progress is good. I have already reached the stage of mind and mind is one. I can control them freely without any hindrance. Thank you for giving me such a precious treasure." "Good." Man Boyu appeared to be slightly excited as he said meaningfully, "Ling Kong, you're also a senior in the sect. Your relationships with people and prestige are both excellent. I also have great expectations for you." Balinkong listened quietly. After returning to New Kuan, Shun Lian immediately sent the refugees home, and at the same time, asked Wu Yinzong to find a healing-type Gu master. Wu Yinzong quickly found one. This person was called Ning Roxin. She was a young woman with a dignified appearance, and there were faint freckles on her cheeks. Her temperament was also famous for being gentle and pleasant. Many people in the gang thought of her, and she had many admirers. Ning Roxin greets Elder Shun. Ning Roxin lowered her head and bowed. She was wearing white men's clothing, looking valiant, and had a petite and cute figure. She was indeed a beauty. No need for formalities. Shun Lian raised his hand. "I called you here to let you take a look at this person. What is wrong with him, and whether he can return to normal." On the seat, the skinny frenzy was shivering. His eye sockets were sunken, and his face was yellow. He was mumbling nonstop, and occasionally he would let out a nightmarish scream, repeating the same words over and over again. Ning Roxin's expression turned solemn, and she carefully inspected him. She placed her palm above Frenzy's head, and a lustrous radiance shot out from her palm, enveloping Frenzy's body. Frenzy immediately calmed down. After about the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Ning Roxin withdrew her hand and wiped the sweat from her forehead. she reported. This person has been cursed by some kind of curse. His chi and blood have been greatly damaged, and his spirit is dispirited. He has also been greatly stimulated, which caused him to go crazy. Is there any way to save him? Shun Lian asked. Ning Roshin nodded. This subordinate is willing to try. If the method is effective, he will recover in 3 days. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. Do your best, Shun Lian hurriedly said. Yes. Ning Roshin took frenzy away. Afterward, Shun Lian announced that he would go into seclusion, but he quietly left in the middle of the night and returned before dawn. At noon the next day, Nu Kuan received a piece of bad news. The Sanxing stone mine had suddenly collapsed in the middle of the night. Fortunately, no one was working at night, and although the collapse was serious, no one was buried alive. Chapter 116. The collapse of the Three Life stone mine did not cause too much of a stir. First, collapses were common. Second, no miners were killed. Third, the sales of Three Life stone were not high. Nu Kuan still had a lot of stock. It would not cause a huge loss of profits. As a result, this was a small matter. In the afternoon, Ning Roshin suddenly came to report that the madman had regained his consciousness. So fast. Shun Lian was shocked. Yesterday, Ning Roshin said it would take 3 days. She did not look very confident. Ning Roshin, who was stared at by Shun Lian, blushed slightly. She quickly replied, "That patient is not an ordinary person. He has a good body and a strong will. After my initial treatment, he recovered very quickly. It was beyond my expectations." Shun Lian nodded. "How is he now?" "His body is still very weak, but his mind is clear. He can communicate normally. He seems to remember Elder. He wants to see you as soon as he wakes up." Ning Roshin lowered her head and said softly, "Good. I want to see him too." Soon, Shun Lian arrived at one of the rooms on the 3rd floor. He saw the lunatic who was leaning against the bed and drinking the medicinal soup. This person had indeed regained his consciousness. Although he was still as thin as a matchstick, his eyes were bright. If one looked closely, he was actually a young man with sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He had an extraordinary appearance and a dignified aura. Benefactor. The moment he saw Shun Lian, the young man quickly put down the medicine and supported his body to get off the bed. "Don't move. Your bones have not recovered." Shun Lian waved his hand and pulled a stool to sit by the bed. "I am Shun Lian, Elder Nu Kuan. You are?" "I am by Yuan Hai, a disciple of Min Mountain Sect. Thank you for saving my life." The young man bowed. "Min Mountain Sect. You are a disciple of a sect." Shun Lian was surprised. Aristocratic families, sects, and the top forces of the human tribe were basically hidden from the world. It was rare to see them. Bai Yuan Hai nodded. "I am ashamed to say that my junior sister and I left Min Mountain and traveled all the way. We could not see the beautiful scenery of the world. Unexpectedly, we encountered a disaster. My junior sister was killed by Wind Demon. I also fell into the hands of Wind Demon." At this point, Bai Yuan Hai's eyes were moist. He tried to hold back his tears, but they still couldn't be stopped. He was extremely sad and couldn't control himself. Ning Roshin passed her handkerchief to Shun Lian. Shun Lian took it and passed it to Bai Yuan Hai. He let him cry for a while before he said in a deep voice, "The dead are gone, and the living are like this. Brother Bai, please restrain your grief and take care of yourself. That Wind Demon escaped and will come back again. As long as you recuperate, you may have a chance to take revenge." Hearing this, Bai Yuan Hai's eyes flashed with unforgettable hatred. He gritted his teeth. "I must avenge my junior sister." Humph. Wind Demon thought she was invisible and unkillable. She did not know the ability of human goo masters. "I have several ways to make her wish she was dead." Shun Lian was puzzled. "Brother Bai is a sect expert. How did you provoke Wind Demon?" Bai Yuan Hai sighed and spoke tirelessly. It turned out that Bai Yuan Hai and his junior sister, Zhang Sun Lu, grew up together. They were childhood sweethearts and gradually developed feelings for each other. But there was still a gap between them. Bai Yuan Hai wholeheartedly wanted to please Zhang Sun Lu. He brought her down the mountain to gain experience. He wanted to find a chance to confess to her on the way. At first, the two were in high spirits and played around. Unknowingly, they came to the area of Black Tiger Mountain. But who would have thought that when they passed by a village, they would see bandits robbing the villagers? The two's blood boiled, and they acted bravely. They killed more than 10 bandits and saved the villagers. After this, the two's relationship quickly improved. Bai Yuanhai finally mustered the courage to confess. Zhang Sun Lu shyly agreed, and they became a pair under the moonlight. I never would have thought that those bandits came from the Black Tiger Stockade village and had a wind demon behind them, causing such a huge disaster. Bai Yuanhai sighed. That day, we were walking on a road. We were in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, we saw a tea stall. We quickly went and asked for a pot of tea to drink and rest. The owner of the tea stall was an old grandpa with a kind appearance. He saw our intimate actions and chatted with us. He praised us as a match made in heaven. Junior's sister and I were a little shy. We were praised by the old grandpa, and our hearts were filled with happiness. At this time, the old grandpa suddenly said, "Answer me, do you love your junior sister?" I looked at my junior sister affectionately and nodded naturally. Yes, I will love my junior sister for the rest of my life. I will never leave her, and we will be together until we grow old. The old grandpa laughed. He turned to my junior sister and said, "Answer me, do you love your senior brother?" My junior sister was extremely shy. She glanced at me and softly said, "Yes." Speaking of this, Bai Yuanhai could not help but tremble. Deep fear flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the old grandpa looked up and laughed. His laughter was extremely cold and cruel. Junior sister and I felt that something was wrong. We were shocked and asked him who he was. Then, she turned into the wind demon and looked at us proudly. Her eyes were cold and threatening. She said, "Two little cuties, I am the wind demon. Your happiness ends here." As soon as wind demon's voice fell, my junior sister and I felt weak and dizzy. At first, I thought that there was something wrong with the tea and we were poisoned. But soon my body changed. My skin quickly withered and my chi and blood were sucked into the wind demon's mouth and nose. In the blink of an eye, my junior sister was eaten by wind demon. Shenlian said coldly, "What is going on?" Junior sister and I were cursed by the wind demon. The wind demon happily told me that she had 2 companion goo. One was the rumor goo. This goo feeds on the truth. As long as the wind demon asks you a question and you answer truthfully, you will be targeted by this goo. Shenlian was puzzled. Targeted? Wind talk goo does not seem to have any power. So what if it eats your truth? Bai Yuanhai. That's right, but don't forget, from a certain perspective, the truth you speak is also part of your body's information. This is equivalent to the rumor speech goo obtaining your personal information. Shenlian was stunned. Bai Yuanhai continued. Wind Demon's second companion goo is called 2-week wind goo. As the name suggests, it is a curse-type goo. The victim's chi and blood will be greatly damaged, and they will be too weak to withstand a single blow. Junior sister and I both answered the wind demon's questions truthfully, and our personal information was obtained by the rumor speech goo. And the rumor speech goo and the extremely weak wind goo worked together to form a curse that instantly weakened our strength, leaving us at the mercy of the wind demon. Shun Lian's breathing stagnated as he realized. So this is the reason why you kept shouting, "Don't answer." Bai Yuanhai nodded and said bitterly, "I lost my consciousness and was unable to communicate normally, but I still maintained a trace of clarity. At that time, I saw you enter Tiger Hell Cave and Wind Demon asked you questions. I was extremely anxious and used this method to remind you. Thankfully, Benefactor was extremely intelligent and immediately understood my intentions. You did not answer my questions, and Wind Demon was at her wit's end." Shun Lian also felt a lingering fear. Bai Yuanhai said solemnly, "When the wind demons use the power of wind speech goo, they will say the words 'answer me.' There are traces of this. But I am worried that if wind demon continues to grow stronger, she will not need to say these words. At that time, she can casually ask a question and unleash a curse that is as pervasive as the wind. It is truly impossible to guard against. Benefactor, please be careful." Wind Demon was proficient in transformation and could transform into all kinds of appearances to get close to anyone. during a conversation. As long as you answered one of her questions truthfully, you would be finished and become too weak to withstand the wind. Terrifying. Terrifying. There was a psychological shadow. When I go out in the future, I will have to be on guard against anyone who asks me questions. Shun Lian cursed in his heart. Wind demons, two companion Gu, were too despicable. They simply did not allow people to have peace. Brother Bai, please rest well and recuperate. Shun Lian looked at Bai Yuanhai, and his face gradually turned pale. He knew Bai Yuanhai had spoken for so long and used up too much energy, so he stood up and bid farewell. After a few days, when Brother Bai recovers and recuperates, please write a letter, and I will send someone to send it to Min Mountain to inform your sect. Shun Lian said before leaving. Thank you, benefactor. Bai Yuanhai lay down and quickly fell asleep. Another day passed. The important day arrived. After a long wait, Gu Garden finally sent the first order to New Kuan under the new agreement. There was a dazzling array of goods to be purchased. The quantity requested was indeed doubled, including 3 life stones. New Kuan's accounts quickly supplied the goods according to the order. There was just enough 3 life stones, and they were almost cleared out. At this point, the only 3 life stones in the entire northern lands were transferred to Gu Garden. However, due to Wan Yin's interference, Gu Garden's inventory records showed that the 3 life stones were out of stock. Now, it will depend on Wan Yin's ability to ask for prices. Shun Lian had a good sleep and began to organize his actions these days. In the battle with Wind Demon, I exposed one of my trump cards, Soul Attack. Others might not know that I have the Calamity aspect, but they can deduce that I have a Soul Attack method. Shun Lian sighed. Recently, he had killed Qi Lian and chased away Wind Demon. His actions were too frequent, and his trump card was inevitably exposed. The Calamity aspect is not completely exposed. The Snake Jade Gu should not be exposed yet. In terms of resources, refining the Snake Jade Gu and evolving it to Silver Rank 5 consumed all of my primordial water. Not a drop of primordial water was left. Destroying Black Tiger Stronghold gave me a great harvest. Other than the power of Calamity and 3,000 bewitchment points, there was also a demon weapon, Crimson Flame Saber, and a ring. Thinking of this, Shun Lian slowly let out a breath of turbid air and took out the spoils of war from Black Tiger Mountain, the charred black saber and ring. Before Wan Yin gets me restricted resources, my strength cannot increase rapidly in a short period of time. However, I can still increase my battle strength in other aspects. For example, this demon weapon. Shun Lian held the saber hilt and weighed it. The pitch black saber was about 60 to 70 kilograms in weight, and there were demonic flame patterns on its surface. Chapter 117. Shun Lian tried to activate a wisp of snow silver primeval essence from the Grandmaster Gu's aperture and poured it into the flaming blade. Immediately, the flame patterns on the blade lit up, bursting out with crimson light and emitting terrifying heat. It was as if a terrifying flame demon was sleeping inside the blade, containing the violent power of a volcano that could erupt at any time and destroy the world. Whoosh! Shun Lian took a deep breath and poured more snow-silver primeval essence into the blade. The scorched black blade gradually turned crimson red, like a piece of iron that had just been taken out of the furnace. It was incomparably hot, and the heat wave was overwhelming. Shun Lian, who was close at hand, felt it the most, and his eyebrows instantly curled up. But after a slight movement of his mind, he was pleasantly surprised to find that he could control the direction of the flames, concentrating the blazing power in front of him. As expected of a demon weapon, amazing. Next, Shun Lian conducted several tests and found that the Crimson Flame Blade had 2 forms. One was flame ejection, similar to a flamethrower, which was the move Xiao Zhijiang had used. Blazing flames directly spurted out from the tip of the blade, burning the front and attacking up to 30 meters away. In this form, it consumed a lot of primeval essence and could not be maintained for long. The other was flames like a blade. The flames released by the Crimson Flame Blade were condensed and did not disperse. They were attached to the blade and extended into the shape of a large blade, forming a 3-meter long flaming blade. This form consumed relatively less primeval essence and was suitable for close combat. The flames could burn the blade, and the blade's power was unparalleled. The blade is the guts of hundreds of weapons. I will cultivate a few blade techniques and learn from others, and my strength will definitely increase. After making up his mind, Shen Lian put down the crimson flame saber and picked up the ring. He looked at it carefully and saw a round pearl inlaid on the ring. It was black in color, but other than that, he could not see any other clues. This item can remain intact under the corrosive wind. It is absolutely not an ordinary item. Shen Lian was sure that this was a treasure. After pondering for a while, he released his divine sense and radiated it. Immediately, his expression froze, and shock and ecstasy appeared on his face. His divine sense penetrated the black pearl and entered a strange space that was about 100 square meters in size. There were 4 boxes inside, and the big box was filled with gold, silver, and jewels. It can't be. Shen Lian's spirits were lifted. With a thought, whoosh, the items in the space suddenly flashed out and landed in front of Shen Lian. Golden light shone, the pearls and jewels. The whole room lit up. As expected, this is an item storage treasure. It must have been created by a spatial goo master. Shen Lian, who was overjoyed, had a happy smile on his face. Xiao Zhijiang worked hard for the Wind Demon and recognized him as his master. In the past 36 years, he had harmed countless people, and the wealth he plundered was shocking. Compared to these jewels, silver, Shun of Shen Lian, a shun of the crimson wine debts were common, but 70 years old was rare. How many years are there in a person's life? In this 1 year, spatial goo masters could not cultivate and progress. It was equivalent to stagnating. Because of this, spatial goo masters were not willing to do such a thing. Thus, spatial goo masters had very few storage treasures. Each of them was priceless and could only be found by chance. With this wealth, my family will have no problem establishing a foothold in Ronghua City. Wearing the ring on his index finger, he waved it at the items on the ground. In an instant, all the items were sucked into the ring. Shen Lian also kept the eroding heaven sword and wind-chasing sword into the ring. Without any extra items, he felt relaxed. Next, he went to the library and asked for several peerless blade techniques. 8 Gates of Heaven Blade, Sun and Moon Universe Blade Technique, 18 Rolling Meat Blade, Plum Blossom Blade, 5 Tiger Gate Breaking Blade. Each of the blade techniques had their own merits. With Shen Lian's current knowledge and understanding of martial arts, and with the help of the Grandmaster Gu, he was able to comprehend these profound saber techniques in just a short while and master them. Although different blade techniques have their own characteristics, they are still the same. Compared to sword techniques, which are nimble and flexible, blade techniques are bold and unrestrained. They do not deliberately pursue the changes of the blade technique, but instead continuously strengthen the power, making the blade moves heavy and fierce. People who use the blade are often very murderous. Because the blade moves are too fierce, they do not leave any room for maneuver. No matter how many blade techniques I learn, I still need to make them my own. Shen Lian combined the characteristics of flame blade and various blade techniques, gradually comprehending a set of flame blade technique. In the practice room, 10 bronze men formed a circle. Shen Lian held the saber in his hand and took a deep breath. With a hoo sound, the scorched black saber suddenly emitted a crimson flame. The flame followed the body of the saber and expanded outwards. In an instant, it became a 3-meter-long flaming saber. Shen Lian raised the blade and slashed vertically. A brilliant flame descended, and with a cracking sound, the bronze man made of crimson copper was split into 2 from the middle. The cut was burning red and shining. The perfect combination of blade, chi, and flame. The attack power is indeed terrifying. Shen Lian's eyes flashed, and his lips curled into a strong arc. As he squatted down, he lifted his flaming saber, and the saber gleam split into 2. 2 streams of flame shot out, and 2 bronze statues were cut in half at the waist. They fell to the ground with a thud. heaven-destroying flame blade. Shunlian flew into the air, and his aura suddenly increased. He swung his blade, and the raging flame swept out like a cattail leaf fan. It was accompanied by the explosive and horrifying chi of the blade. A huge shadow of the blade appeared, and the attack was very fierce. Boom! The tyrannical force sent the remaining 7 bronze men flying 7 to 8 meters away before they fell to the ground. Their bodies were charred black, and some parts were even deformed by the flames. Dark Ghost Mountain, Chong Tribe. The majestic palace built on the mountain was like a heavenly palace, shrouded in mist and unreachable. At the shady area of Dark Ghost Mountain, a large area of Mengpa tea was planted. The tea leaves were in the shape of distorted human faces, like the faces of vengeful spirits. And in the depths of Dark Ghost Mountain, there was a surging river of forgetfulness. It was rumored that the river of forgetfulness's water was blood yellow in color and was filled with wandering spirits that could not be reincarnated. People who fell into the river of forgetfulness would have their flesh and blood melted in an instant, leaving no corpse behind. Their souls would be imprisoned in the river, unable to be reincarnated. Sigh. The Chong tribe's bloodline goo has been passed down for a total of 861 years, but it met with such a disaster. The person who let out this sigh was the current head of the Chong tribe. His name was Chong Xianyu. He stood in front of the river of forgetfulness and looked at the filthy and smelly river water with a gloomy expression. It's been 6 years, and we still haven't found a solution. 6 years ago, the seemingly mild earthquake had almost dealt a fatal blow to the Chong family. The river of forgetfulness had undergone an abnormal change. A crack had appeared at the bottom of the river, and some black matter had surged out, mixing into the filthy river water. Mengpa tea needed to be watered by the river of forgetfulness to grow, or else it would weaken and die. But after the earthquake 6 years ago, the Chong tribe suddenly discovered that a large area of Mengpa tea had withered, and the reason was unknown. At first, the Chong tribe was naturally in a panic, and after investigating for half a year, they found the cause. It turned out that there was a problem with the river of forgetfulness's water. Chong Xianguang, who was also Chong Xianyu's younger brother, comforted him, although there was a change in the river of forgetfulness's water. Fortunately, we found a temporary solution. 3 life stones can remove the black substance in the water. Throwing in a batch of 3 life stones before autumn can guarantee that there won't be any problems with Mengpa tea for a year. Chong Xianyu was helpless when he heard this. 3 life stones treated the symptoms, but not the root of the problem. Furthermore, the usage was increasing year by year. If this continued, there would be a huge problem. He could not help but worry. Brother, I haven't been able to sleep recently, and am very worried. Right now, no one knows that there is a problem with the river of forgetfulness's water. But once this matter is leaked out and our enemies find out, the Chong tribe will be in big trouble. Chong Xianguang comforted. Brother, haven't we already found a solution? As long as we have the tortoise longevity goo and seal that crack at the bottom of the river, we will be able to solve this problem once and for all. Tortoise longevity goo. How can it be so easy to find? Chong Xianyu was anxious. Chong Xianguang, however, shook his hand and took out a letter, smiling. I just received news that there's a tortoise longevity goo in the Southern Sea. It was born after a huge storm. I have already sent people over. We must obtain it at all costs. Is this true? Chong Xianyu was overjoyed. He quickly took the letter and looked at it, letting out a sigh of relief. Good, good. Heaven bless Chong tribe. Our ancestors blessed Chong tribe. Chong Xianyu raised his arms and cheered. The huge stone that had been weighing on his heart for 6 years was finally gone. Chong Xianguang smiled. We still need some time to obtain the tortoise longevity goo. To get through today's crisis, we still need 3 life stones. I have already sent people to the goo garden to purchase them. Yes, this will be our last purchase of 3 life stones. Chong Xianyu nodded excitedly. Goo Garden, 3rd floor's guest hall. Chong Shanqing was anxiously pacing back and forth, sweat dripping down his forehead. After a while, Wan Yin and Shuang, she came over, smiling, greetings to Chong tribe's external clan leader. Aristocratic families were divided into inner and outer clans. There was only one clan leader. However, Chong Shanqing was the highest leader of Chong tribe's outer clans. Such a person was often respectfully addressed as external clan leader. Chong Shanqing had anger on his face, saying anxiously, "Boss Wan, the Gu Garden's reputation has always been excellent. Why did you break your promise this time?" Wan Yin was shocked. "External clan leader, please calm down. We can talk about it slowly. Our Chong tribe had already placed an order with the Gu Garden a month ago, preparing to purchase a large amount of resources. Why have you not completed the preparations yet? This has never happened before." Saying so, Chong Shanqing passed the order over. Wan Yin took a look and frowned. "What are we lacking? 2 items are missing. One is gold and silver grass. The other is 3 life stones." Wan Yin quickly turned to look at Shuang Shi, shouting angrily, "What is going on? I asked you to look after the Gu Garden. Is this how you do things?" Shuang Shi quickly lowered her head, panicking. "This subordinate deserves death. I have already explained to external clan leader. These 2 items are out of stock." "Out of stock?" Wan Yin cried out in shock. Chapter 118. Shuang Shi could not help but glance at the unsightly Chong Shanqing, saying slowly, "Gold and silver grass is still supplied in the north. We can gather it in a few days. 3 life stone is almost impossible to gather in a short period of time." "Nonsense." Wan Yin slapped the table, shouting, "3 life stone is not a rare product. We have never run out of it." Chong Shanqing hurriedly nodded as well. He was anxious about the 3 live stone, but he couldn't show it. Shuang Shi sighed, smiling bitterly. "In the north, only 2 tribes produce 3 life stone. One is Black Tiger Village, the other is New Kuan. Black Tiger Village colluded with the wind demons to harm people. New Kuan found out. Elder Shin Lian attacked Black Tiger Village in anger. He killed those who should be killed, burned those who should be burned. The mine was also implicated and destroyed. The 3 life stone here is naturally gone." This matter had already spread among the upper echelons of the north. This also caused Shun Lian to enter the sights of the aristocratic families. Chong Shanqing had naturally heard of this matter. He knew the Gu Garden was not lying. Wan Yin blinked. "Black Tiger Village is gone, but New Kuan still has it, right? Well, the weather is unpredictable. The furious Kuan gang's mine has collapsed and can no longer supply the 3 live stone. I personally went to New Kuan to ask. It will take at least 3 months to resume production." Shuang Shi spread out her hands, showing a helpless expression. How could this be? Wan Yin pondered for a while, turning around and bowing apologetically. "External clan leader, this is my first time in the Gu Garden. I am inexperienced causing this to happen. Please give me some time. The north does not have 3 life stone, but the Central Plains do. I will send people from the Central Plains." Saying so, Shuang Shi quickly pulled Wan Yin's clothes, shaking her head at her. Wan Yin shouted impatiently, "There are no outsiders here. Speak your mind." Shuang Shi braced herself and said, "Did you forget the Qi Lian attack on the merchant ships? Wei River is not peaceful now. The Central Plains do not dare to send ships. They cannot transport goods over." Wan Yin was stunned, a little dumbfounded. Chong Shanqing's eyes darted back and forth. His heart filled with impatience. He said in a low voice, "These are all excuses. Why want his results? You must prepare everything that the Chong family orders." Without the 3 live stone, he wouldn't be able to explain himself when he returned. Of course. Wan Yin was well aware of the situation. He quickly agreed and began to discuss the solution with Shuang Shi. If the water route is blocked, what about the land route? There are mountains between the north and the Central Plains. It's a long journey. It will take at least 3 months by land. We might as well wait for New Kuan to resume production. That's still the water route. Spend more money, and there will always be people who are willing to take the risk. It's possible, but don't get your hopes up. The river demon Qi Lian was the son of the Suilin of Goguryeo. The Suilin of Goguryeo lost his beloved son, and in his fury, he stirred up trouble, and even immortals couldn't cross the Wei River. Perhaps. Shuang Shi hesitated. "Stop hemming and hawing. Speak." Wan Yin said anxiously. Shuang Shi said, Invite the people of the Central Plains to board the suppression ship so that the Swalan of Goguryeo won't dare to act recklessly. We can guarantee that the goods will be transported to the Goo Garden. This is the only way to get the 3 live stone quickly. If it's fast, it'll take 10 days. If it's slow, it'll take a month. Wan Yin's breathing stagnated as he cried out in shock. Invite the people of the influential families. How much will we have to pay? He turned to Chang Shanqing as he spoke. Wan Yin directly apologized, saying, "External clan leader, there is a reason for this. I am powerless. It's all my fault. If you want to scold me, just scold me." Chang Shanqing was completely speechless. What's the use of scolding you? He stomped his feet anxiously, saying, "Is there really no other way?" Wan Yin lowered her head, her eyes filled with tears as she said, feeling wronged. "This is the first time I took over the Goo Garden. I did not take good care of it. Please forgive me." Chang Shanqing did not dare to force her too much. After all, Chang tribe still had to do business with the Goo Garden in the future. Their relationship could not be too strained. Without the 3 live stone to purify the water of Wang River, Granny Ming's tea will dry up. Without harvesting Granny Ming's tea, the Goo will starve to death. Chang Shanqing knew the severity of this matter. Many things were linked together. Don't look at how powerful the influential families were and how high their status was. A small mishap could cause them to weaken rapidly or even be exterminated. Invite the influential families of the Central Plains to board the suppression ship. Chang Shanqing understood the price and did not waste any more time. He quickly sent a letter to the clan leader, Chang Xuanyu, explaining the cause and effect of the matter, letting Chang Xuanyu make the decision. Several days later, Shun Lian came to Ning Roxin to visit Bai Yuanhai again. Benefactor, Bai Yuanhai had recovered well. He felt that he had gained weight and was more energetic. "Brother Bai, how do you feel?" Shun Lian smiled as he asked, sitting at the bedside. "Much better. Dr. Ning's healing goo is very miraculous. I think I will be able to walk soon." Bai Yuanhai showed great gratitude on his face. Ning Roxin, who was at the side, heard this and smiled. After chatting for a while, Shun Lian started to fish for information. "Brother Bai is very knowledgeable. I have some doubts that no one can solve. I would like to ask for your guidance." "Benefactor, please speak. I will tell you everything I know." Bai Yuanhai quickly became spirited. Shin Lian asked curiously, "I have often heard people say that goo are divided into 3 types: the bloodline goo of the influential families, the inheritance goo of the sects, and other than that, the other goo in our hands. May I ask, Brother Bai, what are the differences between these 3 types of goo?" Shun Lian had asked this question to Kong Yu, Bien Chan Yu, and Man Bo Yu, but the 3 of them did not know much about it and could not explain it clearly. Bai Yuanhai smiled. "Benefactor, you are not from an influential family, nor have you joined a sect. It is reasonable that you do not understand the differences between the 3 types of goo." After pondering for a while, he organized his thoughts and explained slowly. "First, let's talk about the influential family's bloodline goo. A certain goo is bound to a certain family's bloodline. The bloodline fuses and is passed down from generation to generation. This is the bloodline goo. The bloodline goo can only be refined by the family's bloodline, and the refinement difficulty is very low. The denser the bloodline, the easier it is to obtain the goo's acknowledgement, and the faster the growth in the future, the stronger the goo's power is. It can be said that influential families are determined by the density of their bloodline. Whoever has denser bloodline has greater potential, and the upper limit of their growth will be higher." Shun Lian clicked his tongue. "The density of the bloodline is determined at birth." Bai Yuanhai nodded. "It is basically like that, but there are exceptions. After an influential family refines the bloodline goo, the denser the bloodline, the faster the bloodline goo evolves. And after the bloodline goo evolves, it can even feed back to itself, increasing the density of the bloodline. This is a continuous cycle of improvement. Some people might have very low bloodline density at the start, but their growth can be infinitely high." Shun Lian frowned slightly. "Why does it sound like a demon's companion goo?" Bai Yuanhai's eyes brightened, exclaiming, "Benefactor is indeed very intelligent." "That's right. the so-called bloodline goo is actually a modified version of a demon's companion goo. Humans have been raising goo, refining goo, and using goo for a long period of time. In order to be able to contend against demons, they have to constantly learn the strengths of demons, and the bloodline goo is their greatest achievement. It could be said that the bloodline goo is the human race's companion goo. So it's like this. Shun Lian came to a realization and clicked his tongue in wonder. He finally understood why those influential families viewed all living beings as ants, and why their way of doing things was so similar to demons. Bai Yuan Hai. Now let's talk about inheritance goo. The biggest difference between a sex inheritance goo and bloodline goo and other goo is that the relationship between the goo master and the goo is equal. The goo is an independent entity that has been refined. What, not refined? Shun Lian was shocked. If the goo is not refined, how can one raise goo, refine goo, and use goo? Bai Yuan Hai nodded. The relationship between inheritance goo and goo master is closer to cooperation and mutual benefit. The inheritance goo and the goo master have some kind of contract. The goo master will provide the goo with what it needs, and the goo will bestow strength to the goo master. This unique contract relationship allows the goo master and goo to be equal existences, like allies. It was a little complicated, Bai Yuan Hai thought for a while, and gave an example. Take Buddhism as an example. Buddhism is a typical sect. Its inheritance goo is Buddha heart goo. Other than that, there are 8 great Vajra goo, 32 aspect goo, 81 Arhat goo, myriad Bodhisattva goo, and so on. A long time ago, a person encountered Buddha heart goo. He wanted to refine it, but was unable to succeed. He sat in front of Buddha heart goo every day, praying devoutly and comprehending Zen secrets. Finally, one day, his sincerity moved Buddha heart goo. Buddha heart goo wanted to be refined by him, but he was only willing to be friends with Buddha heart goo. Thus, Buddha heart goo made a contract with him, and this person was the Buddha who created Buddhism in the future. That day, I shook all the scripture buckets, not to release souls, but to touch your fingertips. That year, I crawled on the mountain path, not to meet you, but to cling to your warmth. That time and time again, not to cultivate for the next life, but to meet you on the way. The Buddha had the Buddha heart goo and created the Buddhism doctrine and Buddhism sect. In the long years that followed, the Buddha encountered the Vajra goo, aspect goo, Arhat goo, Bodhisattva goo, and so on. The Buddha did not refine these goo, but made the Buddha heart goo sign a contract with them. Thus, these goo were willing to submit to the Buddha heart goo. This was using goo to refine goo. After that, Buddha heart goo, aspect goo, and so on, gave them to his believers. During this process, he found that his believers did not need to refine these goo and could directly absorb them into their bodies, opening their apertures and activating the goo's power. This was not the end. Buddha heart goo could be taken back at any time and could also absorb and gather the power of these goo, returning it all to Buddha heart goo. Shun Lian was a little dumbfounded. Hearing this, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is still mine. You can play like this. Buddha heart goo has countless believers and tens of thousands of believer goo masters. With a single thought, he can make Buddha heart goo gather the power of the believer goo masters into one. That vast power is unparalleled, shaking heaven and earth. Boundless Buddhism and boundless dharmic powers. Bai Yuan Hai exclaimed. The inheritance goo of a certain sect is similar to the Buddha heart goo. It is passed down from generation to generation by the sect leaders and does not depend on the bloodline, nor is it restricted by the bloodline. However, it can make the sect leader strong enough to dominate a region and establish his own sect, standing tall and flourishing for a long time. Chapter 119. Shun Lian held his breath. Brother Bai, can you tell me in detail what the so-called contract is? The contract was undoubtedly the key. If he could figure out the true nature of the contract, he, who had the life twister worm, might have the conditions to establish a sect and be above all living beings. The contract is the core secret of the sect and the foundation of the sect. Only the higher-ups of the sect and even the sect master know about it. I'm only a disciple of Min Mountain's sect and have never seen the contract, so I don't know what it is." As expected, Bai Yuanhai smiled bitterly and replied. This answer was expected, and Shun Lian was not disappointed. He pondered for a while and said in surprise, "So, after Brother Bai joins the sect, the main ascension gu is given to you by the sect. Brother Bai must maintain absolute loyalty to the sect and even obey all orders. Otherwise, the sect can take back your main ascension gu at any time and beat you down to the mortal world?" Bai Yuanhai nodded. "You can say that. The disciples of the sect share honor and disgrace with the sect. If the lips die, the teeth will be cold, while the lower-ranked disciples must obey the orders of the higher-ups. This is a sign of loyalty. In this point, it is no different from New Koan. Don't your sect's rules require the disciples to be loyal to the sect master? However, the sect's binding force is stronger. The disciples of the sect must maintain reverence at all times. The relationship between the sect master and the disciples is like the relationship between a monarch and his minister. The sect master has the power to kill the disciples. Of course, there was a difference. The gu of inheritance could gather the strength of everyone. The stronger the disciple, the more strength the sect master could gather. This meant that the sect master would be stronger and would firmly crush others and have absolute hegemony. Under this premise, the sect master would only hope that the disciples of the sect would be stronger and spare no effort to cultivate talents. He would not be narrow-minded like Nu Kuan and Man Boyu. Shun Lian could not help but wonder, what if someone wants to disobey or even betray the sect? Bai Yuanhai did not know whether to laugh or cry. He found this person was really interesting. If you joined a sect, you would naturally treat the sect as your home and wholeheartedly serve the sect. If the sect was doing well, then you would be doing well. The more contributions you made, the more the sect would view you as a pillar and nurture you. Who would think of disobedience and betrayal all day long? However, on second thought, Bai Yuanhai felt that Shun Lian was Elder Nu Kuan and had many subordinates, but he was very young and might not be able to convince them. Maybe he was worried about how to keep his subordinates loyal, so he asked this question. Disobedience and betrayal are despised by others. Betraying one's sect is a serious crime, and the punishment is extremely heavy. However, it still happens from time to time. That was because no matter how unbreakable a contract was, there would always be loopholes that could be circumvented or even broken. This was like there was a keep one's word gu in this world, and there was also a break one's word gu. There would always be some people who would rack their brains to benefit themselves at the expense of others and plunder the benefits of others. They would even place their personal benefits above the benefits of the group, risking universal condemnation. Within the sect, if someone has thoughts of betrayal, he would need to find a way to break the contract between his main advancement gu and the inheritance gu and get rid of the inheritance gu's control. This is a necessary step. Shun Lian's gaze flashed. Can the inheritance gu discover this kind of abnormal breaking of the contract in time? Yes. However, don't underestimate the ability of a traitor. They would usually not forcefully break the contract, but would tamper with the contract and blur it. On the surface, it looks like they are still bound by the inheritance gu, but in reality, they have broken free from the shackles of the rules and can do whatever they want in the dark. The stronger a sect is, the more perfect the contract would be. There would be fewer loopholes, almost unbreakable, and there would be fewer people who betray the sect. Bai Yuanhai emphasized. Hearing this, Shun Lian smiled and nodded, not continuing to ask. Bai Yuanhai had never seen the true form of the contract, and everything he said was based on his imagination. However, to be able to understand the bloodline gu and inheritance gu to this extent through him, it was already a huge gain. Yes, my horizons have been broadened. Shun Lian cupped his fists, showing a humble and studious expression. Thank you, Brother Bai, for your guidance. Benefactor is too polite. With your tyrannical strength, you should be qualified to be taken in as an outsider by an aristocratic family. At that time, you will naturally have the opportunity to understand these matters. Bai Yuanhai clearly knew that behind Nu Kuan was Family Lin and said meaningfully, taken in as an outsider? Hearing this, Shun Lian was slightly dazed, frowning. Seeing this, Bai Yuanhai smiled. Aristocratic families are divided into inner and outer clans. Actually, the outer clans are very diverse. There are clansmen with thin, aristocratic bloodlines, and also experts with different surnames. Benefactor's contribution in defeating the Wind Demon is enough to attract Family Lin's attention, not to mention that you have such a great opportunity. Saying this, Bai Yuanhai gazed deeply at Shun Lian's chest, his eyes flashing with unconcealable envy. Opportunity? The bewildered Shun Lian looked at his own body in confusion and could not help but ask, "Please enlighten me, Brother Bai." "You don't know?" Bai Yuanhai raised his eyebrows and smiled with some realization. "That's right, this kind of thing is very rare, and Benefactor was involved in it, so it is reasonable that you did not realize it." He pointed at Shun Lian's chest and said something shocking. "A gu is being born in Benefactor's body." "What?" Shun Lian's expression changed greatly. Ning Roshin was also shocked. Her eyes widened as she sized up Shun Lian, but showed a puzzled expression as if she did not see anything. "Brother Bai isn't joking with me, right?" Shun Lian quickly calmed down and laughed dryly. Bai Yuanhai's words seemed to be telling Shun Lian that he was pregnant. How would I dare to tease Benefactor? Bai Yuanhai quickly waved his hand, but said very seriously, "Benefactor may not be able to see it, but my eyes can. A gu is indeed being born in your body, and the wind is surging around the gu. It should be a wind-type gu." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "I think when you fought with the wind demon in the Tiger Roar Cave, you were attacked by all kinds of wind-type forces, and your chest was the most densely attacked area, forming some kind of unique environment, becoming the soil for nurturing gu. This is why you had this opportunity. A gu was born because of you." "Born because of me?" Shun Lian could not believe it, and exclaimed, "Is this a companion gu?" The characteristic of a companion gu is that it evolves as the demon grows day by day, relying on the demon to become stronger. Bai Yuanhai shook his head slightly and laughed. "Companion gu is unique to demons. Humans do not have it. This gu of yours can only be said to have been born in your body by coincidence." "Is that so?" Shun Lian already believed Bai Yuanhai's words and could not help but be surprised. "When will this gu be fully formed?" "Hard to say. It might be very soon, or it might take 8 to 10 years. Bai Yuanhai had no way to judge. After all, the birth of a gu was not like a woman getting pregnant. There was a 10-month pregnancy period. It was hard to estimate. It might take 8 to 10 years. Shun Lian's lips twitched. He was speechless. Bai Yuanhai laughed. "Benefactor does not need to worry. The gu being born in your body will not affect you. Moreover, after this gu is born, it will naturally become close to you. It should be very easy to refine." "I hope so." Shun Lian asked again, "Has this happened before? Has it happened to other people?" "Of course it has. For example, the Scholar Gu will only be born in the Scholar who obtained first place in the court examination. The Martial Scholar Gu will also be born in the Martial Scholar who obtained first place in the martial arts competition. There's also the Grumbling Woman Gu, the Villain Gu, and so on. Hee, you know." Bai Yuanhai gave a crooked smile. Shun Lian could not help but think of the corner of the Song Dynasty. This person also seemed to be in the same situation. The Escape Passage Gu was born at the same time as him. It was truly a fortuitous encounter. Days passed by. Shun Lian practiced swordsmanship and saber. He did not poke the gu all day, but he gained something every day. At first, he was full of enthusiasm for the gu in his chest, touching his chest from time to time, but later, his enthusiasm gradually faded, and he forgot about this matter. Bai Yuanhai was recovering day by day. He had strength. He wrote a letter, and Shun Lian sent it to Min Mountain. Unknowingly, half a month passed. In the middle of the night, Shun Lian had been sleeping soundly, but suddenly woke up with a start. He opened his eyes. There was a whirlpool floating in front of his chest. It was like a mini tornado, light blue like the blue sky. Dust was swirling in the room. The doors and windows were rattling, as if there was a typhoon or tsunami raging outside. Shun Lian looked out of the window. The moon was bright, the stars were sparse, and the leaves were motionless. "You are really born." Shun Lian was slightly stunned for a moment, and then his heart beat wildly. He could not help but be ecstatic. He quickly shook the ring on his index finger, took out a silver needle, pricked his finger, and dripped his blood to feed the newly born Gu. After this, Gu drank Shun Lian's blood. It immediately transmitted an intimate thought, flashed into his body, and opened up an aperture in his lungs. The fourth aperture. The interface flashed, and the information was updated. Nameless Gu, white class, special effect, pervasive. Shun Lian walked to the window, and as he walked, there was a slight breeze around him, forming a strange wave, spreading to the distance through the door and windows. In the corridor, several guards were on night duty. They kept yawning and looked listless. Two of the guards were gathered together and excitedly chatting about something. "My sister-in-law is fair and tender. After my brother died, she stayed alone in the room. I went to court her several times, and she couldn't help but obey me. You are awesome. Even your sister-in-law won't let me go. You are a beast." The two of them whispered to each other, and even the guards not far away could not hear what they were talking about, but Shun Lian could hear it clearly. Even the changes in their expressions, the speed of their breathing, and even the number of eyebrows were clearly reflected in his mind. Pervasive. So this is a special effect of detection. In a flash, Shun Lian figured out the use of this special effect. The breeze went through the door. Gong Sun Ji and the others did not live here. Only the room in Balinkong was still lit. In an instant, everything in the room appeared in his mind. Even if it was a dark environment, under the sweep of the wind, it was as bright as day, and there were no more secrets to speak of. An all-pervasive wind. It's as if the divine sense has turned into a gust of wind, silently probing everywhere. The divine sense of the Calamity Dharma form's divine sense exploration was actually very limited to a range of 3 feet around the body, but the pervasive wind greatly expanded the exploration range, and it was hidden in the wind so it would not be easily detected. Suddenly, Chapter 120. The 3 human-shaped puppets were wearing tortoiseshell armor. They were holding a sword, a saber, and a spear respectively. The 3 weapons were also demonic weapons. As they danced, the 3 colors of light intertwined. There was a dark green flame on the sword, which seemed to be poisonous. Wherever the sword passed, the air was filled with a frightening aura. The saber was shining with bloody light, which was cold and bloodthirsty. There was also the bone spear, which was surrounded by black wind and had a strong penetrating force. Heaven, earth, and man. Tripartite formation. Balinkong kept moving his hands. Under his control, the 3 giant puppets were like a whole. Some were fast, some were slow, but they were good at both offense and defense. Their cooperation was perfect, and their killing power was unparalleled. In the practice room, there was a big cage with more than 10 demons imprisoned in it. They were actually the mantis that Shun Lian had killed. These mantis demons were even bigger, more than twice the size of the one that Shun Lian had killed. They had sharp fangs and frightening claws. With a clank, the cage suddenly opened. The mantis demons, who had been starving for many days, were drooling. Their eyes were red, and they immediately rushed toward Balinkong. The 3 giant puppets blocked in front of him. The sword-wielding puppet waved its long sword horizontally. As the sword light flashed, the void nearby buzzed. With a slashing sound, 2 mantis demons were cut in half at the waist. The other mantis demon was slightly wounded in the chest. Black blood flowed out of the wound. It ran for 3 steps and fell to the ground, bleeding from its 7 orifices and dying. On the other side, the sword-wielding puppet took a step forward. Its bloody saber shook violently in the air and transformed into a bloody shadow. Suddenly, the saber light split into 2 and cut 2 mantis demons. The wounds bled profusely, and the blood was all absorbed by the bloody saber. In an instant, the 2 mantis demons died. The bloody saber emitted a demonic red light, which was extremely horrifying. The spear-wielding puppet at the center thrust its over 20 m long spear forward in a ferocious manner. With a single thrust, It pierced through the chests of 3 bashes in succession and strung them together, causing the scene to be extremely brutal. Moments later, all the monsters were killed by the 3 giant puppets. Their bodies were littered with broken limbs, and their blood dyed the entire training room red. Bulinkong slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. A hint of satisfaction appeared between his brows, and a viciousness that no one had ever seen before appeared on his face. The tortoise scale on the puppet looks very familiar. Shun Lian suddenly thought of the old demon, and then looked at Bulinkong's gloomy expression. A strange emotion flashed through his heart. Bulinkong is practicing martial arts in the middle of the night. His eyes are fierce and murderous. Is he seeking revenge? In everyone's eyes, Bulinkong was gentle, kind, and well-liked. He was deeply respected and loved by the sect members. Moreover, he had secretly warned Shun Lian to be careful of Chao Cheng. Shun Lian also had a good impression of him. You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Shun Lian's heart skipped a beat. He began to carefully examine the 3 giant puppets, thinking about how he would deal with Bulinkong if he were to fight with them. 3 days later, a secret message came from the Goo Garden. Shun Lian's spirit was greatly boosted. He quickly rushed to the Goo Garden and saw Wan Yin and Shuang Shi. What's the result? Even though Shun Lian had always been calm and collected, he could not help but feel excited. Wan Yin did not speak, only looking at Shun Lian with a smile. Shuang Shi replied. Chang tribe was worried that the Goo Garden's secret would be leaked. Young Miss had no choice but to use the Keep Your Word Goo with them. Now, young Miss cannot mention this matter for the rest of her life. Keep Your Word Goo. Shun Lian's expression changed. This goo was a consumable type goo, used to restrict the words and actions of 2 or more parties. First, the terms that everyone agreed to, as well as the punishment for violating the terms, would be written on a piece of paper. After dripping blood on the paper, the Keep Your Word goo would eat the paper and turn it into some kind of binding force hidden in everyone's body. As long as someone violates the terms, they would receive the agreed punishment. For example, if 2 people made an agreement to keep a secret, whoever leaked the secret would die. One day, if one of them got drunk or talked in his sleep and leaked the secret, he would definitely die. A Keep Your Word goo could only be used once, to restrict the relevant people who signed the contract. To break the Keep Your Word goo's restriction, one had to find a Break Your Word goo. However, the price of using the Break Your Word goo was extremely high. One had to sacrifice the flesh and blood of one's loved ones to activate the Break Your Word goo. Wan Yin could not say anything. Shuang Shi, however, smiled smugly, saying, the contract states clearly that those who know about the Goo Garden cannot leak it. However, I'm not a member of the Goo Garden, so I can leak it. Shun Lian could not help but take a deep look at Shuang Shi. Shuang Shi spoke tirelessly, starting from how they tricked Chang Shan Qing, eventually forcing Chang tribe to take out a restricted grade resource to obtain the 3 life stone. Saying so, Shuang Shi's right hand moved forward, light spewing out from her palm, forming an image. In the image, Chang Shan Qing and Wan Yin were dripping blood on a document. The terms and conditions of the document were clear. This is my image recording goo. It can record what I see in a certain period of time. Shuang Shi was very proud. Shun Lian's gaze flashed as he looked at a certain clause in the agreement, his emotions surging. The more anxious Chang Shan Qing is, the more certain we are that your judgment is correct. After Huan Huan's scheme, we really made a huge profit. For innate talent goo and 30 bottles of primeval water. Shuang Shi already knew the result, but she could not suppress her excitement. Good job. Shun Lian's body shook. He was overjoyed. Next, Shuang Shi walked toward the table at the side. The table was covered with a large red cloth. Once it was lifted, for brocade boxes and 30 bottles of primeval water were revealed. The spoils of war are all here. Shuang Shi smiled. Young Mistress had already predicted that Chang tribe would use the Keep Your Word goo. Before that, she had specially instructed me to let young Master Shen choose first regardless of the final harvest. Moreover, we are willing to give you 2 bottles of primeval water, please. Shun Lian glanced at Wan Yin from the corner of his eyes. In the entire plan, Shun Lian was the one who took the risk and risked his life. While the Gu Garden only provided the transaction records and negotiations, it could be said that they made a huge profit without doing anything. Wan Yin was an understanding person. After tasting such benefits, her heart was moved and she wanted to continue the transaction. At the same time, she knew that she could not leave Shun Lian, so it was reasonable for Shun Lian to take more. Shun Lian did not stand on ceremony. Walking towards the table and opening the 4 brocade boxes, he shook the ring on his index finger and took away 2 of the brocade boxes and 17 bottles of primeval water. Happy cooperation! Shun Lian smiled, extremely satisfied. Wan Yin finally spoke. The matter has already been done. You and I have no way out from now on. We are in the same boat. Shun Lian nodded. If Chong tribe knew that they were schemed against, their anger could be imagined. Wan Yin and Shun Lian would not be able to bear the consequences. In other words, Wan Yin had grasped Shun Lian's Achilles heel, while Shun Lian also grasped her lifeline. They would either get rich together or die together. Inside the cultivation room, Shun Lian shook the ring. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 2 brocade boxes and 17 bottles of primeval water appeared in front of him. These 2 innate talent Gu are human flower Gu. They should be able to raise my innate talent by 2 levels. Shun Lian opened the brocade boxes with ease, dripping his blood to feed the human flower Gu, then summoning the life-twisting Gu to intimidate and tame it, instantly refining the human flower Gu. After consuming the human flower Gu, it was still extremely cold and piercing, accompanied by the pain of Meridian's cleansing. After the 2 human flower Gu were completely digested, Shun Lian only felt his whole body was comfortable and full of energy. Next, there are still 3,580 bewitchment points left, enough to evolve this wind-type Gu to silver level. Actually, Shun Lian could still evolve the Grandmaster Gu or Snake Jade Gu by 1 level, but after thinking about it, the fastest way to raise his strength was to evolve the wind-type Gu. After all, with an additional mid to long-range attack method, Shun Lian would be able to deal with all kinds of battles with ease. Evolve. As Shun Lian's thoughts concentrated, the interface flickered rapidly, instantly expending 3,400 bewitchment points. The wind-type Gu in the aperture shook crazily, turning into a hurricane, shining with a dazzling light blue light. This continued for 4 days, and after the wind-type Gu shook, its appearance changed greatly, turning into a mini tiger with 3 dazzling silver stripes on its body. Its roar shook the sky, causing winds to surge and clouds to surge, mighty and domineering. Clouds follow the dragon. Wind follows the tiger. Shun Lian was unable to restrain his joy, thinking that he should give this tiger a name. When the wind rises, the clouds soar. The might of the sea returns to its homeland. The brave warriors guard the 4 directions. This domineering poem suddenly jumped into Shun Lian's mind, causing his heroic spirit to rise uncontrollably, giving rise to the ambition to conquer the world. Born for me, may you and I be like the wind, whistling through the heavens, free and unrestrained. Shun Lian decided, this Gu will be called Great Wind Rising Shigu. The interface flashed, and the information changed. Great Wind Rising Shigu, Silver Rank 3, Special Effect, Pervasive, Apprehension of the Wind, Wind like Blades, Autumn Leaves, very good. There are 3 additional special effects at once. Shun Lian's gaze flickered. Apprehension of the Wind. This special effect should belong to the mental attack category. Apprehension of the Wind. Grass and trees are soldiers, causing people to panic and feel uneasy. Wind like blades. It must be a real wind attack. Autumn Leaves. Shun Lian pondered for a moment and immediately raised his head to look at the few bronze men. It was time to experience the power of true wordhu. Wind like blades. Shun Lian shouted, and immediately a whirlwind formed in front of him, rolling forward and sucking in a bronze man. Chapter 121. What a powerful blade-like wind. Seeing this, Shun Lian's spirit rose, and his mouth twitched in joy. There's also the incantation, who, it can form an instant attack with just a breath. It is too fast, too convenient. Especially the instant attack. It was extremely powerful. With this ability, you could strike first and gain the upper hand before others attack. You could even strike later and catch the opponent off guard. It was extremely powerful in battle. Whale Breath Goo and Great Wind, Rising Wind Goo were perfect partners, complementing each other. Incantation, who could instantly activate all the special effects. This would give Shun Lian a huge advantage in battle. Autumn Wind, Falling Leaves. Shun Lian called out again. Woo-woo. Immediately, a gust of cold wind swept towards the front. It shuttled through a few bronze realms and floated into the distance before it collapsed and dissipated. Shun Lian's gaze focused and found that the bronze men did not change at all. The attack had no effect. Interesting. Shun Lian's mind moved, and he walked out of the training room. Looking around, his gaze locked onto 3 pots of blooming chrysanthemums at the corner of the room. Autumn Wind, Falling Leaves. With a shout, the cold wind blew, and the 3 pots of chrysanthemums quickly withered. This special effect is very similar to the corrosive wind, but there are some differences. Shun Lian's gaze was filled with amazement. After thinking for a while, his expression gradually brightened. Autumn Wind, Falling Leaves dissolves flesh and bones. The essence of this special effect is to destroy life. Compared to the corrosive wind, Autumn Wind, Falling Leaves might be more sinister and terrifying. After all, it destroys life and is like removing the firewood from under the cauldron. Evening. Outside the door, corner of the Song Dynasty was waiting anxiously. Wu Yinzong was also there. He glanced at him and said solemnly, "When you see Elder Shen later, don't speak carelessly, understand?" Yes. Corner of the Song Dynasty nodded. "Come in." Finally, Shun Lian's voice came from inside the room. Every day, he would only take some time out before lunch to deal with the sex matters. Of course, most of the affairs were directly handed over to Li Su and Wu Yinzong to handle. He only dealt with the major affairs that the two of them could not handle. "Greetings, Elder Shun." Wu Yinzong, corner of the Song Dynasty, bowed respectfully. "What's up?" Shun Lian had just come out of the shower. Her hair was still wet. Wu Yinzong coughed softly and replied, "Someone entrusted the corner of the Song Dynasty to request an audience with Elder Shun." "Oh, who is it?" Shun Lian's eyes flashed as he looked at the corner of the Song Dynasty. "It's Jean Renew's family." The corner of the Song Dynasty blurted out. "Jean Renew?" Shun Lian frowned and thought for a while. He seemed to have heard this name before. Seeing this, the corner of the Song Dynasty said, "She is one of the 3 people who took the bounty mission with me to investigate Sanya Mountain." Sanya Mountain, Snake Cave, Krite. Shun Lian then remembered and replied with an "Oh." He asked curiously, "Isn't she dead? Why is the Jean family looking for me?" The corner of the Song Dynasty nervously explained. It turned out that Jean Renew was the apple of the Jean family's eye. She was spoiled since she was young and wanted to have fun. She sneaked out of the house and entered the Goo Garden to take the bounty mission issued by Nu Kuan. She formed a team with the corner of the Song Dynasty and Zhou Xian to investigate Sanya Mountain. The Jean family did not know where she went and did not know that she was killed. They searched for her all over the world. Until recently, the Jean family heard from somewhere that Jean Renew had been in contact with the corner of the Song Dynasty and came looking for them. I've already told them the truth, but who would have thought that the Jean family would pester them endlessly? They said that I kidnapped Jean Renew and wanted me to take responsibility. They even insisted that Jean Renew was still alive and wanted me to lead them to Sanya Mountain to search for her. The corner of the Song Dynasty's face was filled with anxiety. Wu Yinzong also had a headache. Right now, the Jean family is causing trouble in Nu Kuan again. They are clamoring to see gang leader and Elder Shun, saying that we harmed their daughter. They're causing trouble and acting shamelessly. We can't chase them away, even if we chase them away. Shun Lian's gaze turned cold as he said in a deep voice, "Is Nu Kuan a place where anyone can come and cause trouble?" Wu Yinzong's expression was ugly. He held his breath and said, Jean Renew's grandfather, Jean Shu, is Wan Sanyu's sworn brother. We can't offend him. Shen Lian raised his eyebrows. What's Jean Shu's background? No one knows Jean Huashu's background, but Wan Sanyu once said that when he was poor and had no money to do business, it was Jean Shu who appreciated him and lent him money. Because of Wan Sanyu's face, no one is willing to offend Jean Shu easily, Wu Yinzong said carefully. So there is such a relationship. Shen Lian curled his lips. What did gang leader say? Gang leader said, we're the ones who issued the bounty mission. Naturally, we should receive and deal with it. Wu Yinzong braced himself and said. Shen Lian snorted softly. Jean Renew is dead. Is the Jean family trying to extort money by making such a fuss? Shen Lian's heart trembled. He was not someone to be trifled with. He immediately gave the order. Set a time. I want to meet Jean Shu. During dinner, Kong Yu suddenly came to visit. Younger brother Shun, it's not easy to see you. I've been here twice, but you were always in seclusion. Kong Yu entered the room and sat down. He complained with a wry smile, deep worry between his eyebrows. Shen Lian smiled. Is there an urgent matter? Yes, it's not a small matter. Kong Yu sighed and said gloomily, a friend of mine in Family Lin secretly told me that Family Lin is going to transfer a group of people from New Kuan. You and I may be among them. Their purpose is unknown. Shen Lian could not help but shiver. He knew that the war between the Lin and Huang families was imminent. Family Lin transferring people from New Kuan could only mean one thing. The war was finally here, and they urgently needed a group of cannon fodder. Damn it! Shen Lian cursed in his heart. Kong Yu frowned and said with an ugly expression, if I had to guess, the Lin and Huang families are going to fight, and we're being called over to help. I think so too, Shen Lian said in a low voice. He did not expect that he would be involved in the fight between the families. If he was involved in a fight of that level, he would have a 90% chance of dying. When will Family Lin send people over? Mid-autumn. The spring and autumn in this world were very short. Autumn was less than a month and a half. At most, there were still about 18 days until mid-autumn. So urgent. I have to find a way out in 18 days. Shen Lian said to himself. He quickly calmed down, thought for a while, and asked Kong Yu a few questions. Are all the 8 elders going? No, at least half of them are recommended by the faction leader. Of course, a deputy faction leader is also needed, so I can't escape. Kong Yu shrugged helplessly. He was also speechless. The other faction leader, Su Fu, was old and weak, so he was able to escape. What does the faction leader mean? Shen Lian knew that Man Boyu would definitely recommend him to the faction leader, so he wanted him to die outside. The faction leader did not say clearly. He only said that the Family Lin must not be careless and must send out immediate combat forces. I think this means that you are also included in this. Kong Yu was actually against it. He clearly mentioned it to Man Boyu. He felt that Shen Lian was the future of New Kuan and should be protected. However, Man Boyu seemed to have other plans, so his objection was invalid. Bian Chanyu is wise to protect himself. Liang Qizhu and Bu Linkong keep a low profile. Li Yunxing is Man Boyu's new confidant, so the 4 of them are relatively safe. Kong Yumi, Gong Sunji, Yuan, and Rong Chun. Shen Lian counted silently in his heart. This time, none of the thorns in Man Boyu's eyes could escape. Big crisis. Sigh. I can die without regrets if I were to fight monsters. But now, I'm involved in a fight between aristocratic families for no reason. What's going on? Kong Yu sighed, feeling very vexed and unhappy. Why is it so strange? Shen Lian frowned and asked curiously. The aristocratic families are high and mighty. Logically speaking, the New Kuan Association is just a Jianghu gang. It's just a secular force. It shouldn't involve us. Why did it suddenly find us? Yes, New Kuan is mainly in charge of managing the goods in Family Lin's territory. It belongs to the rear of logistics. For the stability of the food supply, Family Lin should send people to support us. But now it's the other way around. It's unreasonable. Kong Yu muttered, complaining and doubting. He said this purely to complain, but the speaker didn't mean it. Shen Lian raised the corner of his mouth and a playful look appeared on his face. After Kan Yu left, Shun Lian slowly closed his eyes and pondered how to solve this crisis. Unknowingly, a night had passed, but he still didn't come up with a good idea. At this time, Ning Roshin came to report that the Min Mountain sect sent people to take Bai Yuan Hai away. Shun Lian immediately got up and went to the third floor. In the room, Bai Yuan Hai was able to get out of bed. He had put on weight and looked good. He was respectfully chatting with a dignified old man, telling in detail about his encounter with Zhang Sun Lu and praising how brave Shun Lian was. Standing outside the door, Shun Lian could feel the strong aura emitted from the old man. He had a feeling that he could be killed by him at any time. Benefactor, seeing Shun Lian coming, Bai Yuan Hai quickly got up and introduced, "This is my master, also the elder of Min Mountain sect, Bai Shanxi. Greetings, Senior Bai." Shun Lian quickly saluted. Bai Shanxi also got up and looked Shun Lian up and down. His eyes flashed, and he raised his hand and laughed. "You are indeed a dragon among men, young and promising." Shun Lian said modestly, "Senior, you flatter me. Siek demon, old demon, and Qi Lian died in your hands one after another. Wind demon was also defeated by you. If you're not a dragon among men, who is?" Bai Shanxi stroked his beard and smiled, with strong appreciation in his eyes. The three sat down and talked. Bai Yuan Hai smiled. "Benefactor, you saved my life. I have nothing to repay you. My master and I are discussing how to repay you." Shun Lian quickly waved his hand and said sincerely, "It is not what a gentleman should do. Brother Bai and I are destined to meet. We feel like old friends at first sight. There is no need to repay." Bai Yuan Hai looked serious. He looked at Bai Shanxi and asked seriously, "Benefactor, are you interested in joining Min Mountain sect?" Chapter 122. Thinking about it, sects were thirsty for talents. Shun Lian's talent was enough to move any sect. Enter Min Mountain sect and become a sect disciple. The sudden surprise caused Shun Lian's mind to become active. He quickly realized that this was not only a great opportunity, but also a great opportunity to avoid getting involved in the battle between Lin and Huang clans. "Benefactor, that wind type goo has already been born in your body, right?" Bai Yuan Hai's eyes moved around Shun Lian's chest as he laughed excitedly. Thanks to Brother Bai's auspicious words, a wind-type goo was indeed born not long ago and has been successfully refined. Shun Lian smiled as he replied. Bai Yuan Hai immediately tried his best to persuade him. "This wind-type goo was born because of you. It has the same aura as you and has huge potential. As long as there are sufficient resources, it will not be a problem to evolve to gold rank in time. And the sect has sufficient resources and a good environment. It is no doubt beneficial to the growth of a peerless genius like Benefactor. Let me divulge a secret. My Min Mountain sect has a wind cave that is specially used to nurture wind-type goo masters. It produces many talents. And that wind cave is coincidentally under my master's control. Benefactor can cultivate there and benefit greatly. There's a great chance for you to advance to gold rank, or even become a legendary goo master." Bai Shanxi was full of smiles as he nodded repeatedly. This was actually the biggest reason why Bai Shanxi valued Shun Lian. When he heard Bai Yuan Hai mention this, he was moved to take him in as a disciple. According to Shun Lian's conditions, Bai Shanxi had great confidence in nurturing Shun Lian into a gold rank goo master and had a 30% chance of advancing to legendary rank. As for the epic rank above legendary rank, it was too far out of his reach. It was not something he could imagine. To any sect, gold rank goo masters were the face of the sect. They would not complain about having too many of them. And a person like Shun Lian with such great luck could only be encountered and not sought. This naturally moved Bai Shanxi greatly. After Bai Yuan Hai received Bai Shanxi's instructions and was also very grateful to Shun Lian, he spared no effort to recruit him. Moreover, I heard that the battle between Lin and Huang clans is imminent. The northern lands will fall into chaos. At that time, in the vast northern lands, where will we be able to settle down? Only the powerful sects, hidden from the world, could have a safe haven. In addition, The wind demon resented the benefactor and would definitely seek revenge. It might even implicate the benefactor's family. Although there were many troubles, if the benefactor joined the Min Mountain sect, all the problems would be solved. For example, you can move your family to Min Mountain City. With the protection of Min Mountain sect, the wind demon will not dare to act recklessly. Bai Yuanhai talked nonstop. He spoke reasonably and said a lot. In fact, it could be summed up in one sentence. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. There was no need for Bai Yuanhai to say more. Shun Lian had thought of all these by himself. His eyes were filled with eagerness. The opportunity was so good that he could not help but agree. However, there was one thing that made him hesitate. He had to figure out before he could feel at ease. Shun Lian pondered for a while and said, "Last time, I talked to Brother Bai about the inheritance goo and learned that the sect only allows two types of goo to exist. One is the inheritance goo, and the other is the contract goo that submits to the inheritance goo. I already have the goo on me. I don't know how I will be dealt with after I join the sect." Bai Yuanhai did not seem to know how to answer this question. He quickly looked at Bai Shanxi. The latter pondered for a while and answered seriously, "According to the rules of the sect, the goo on you will all be transformed into contract goo. That is, you have to hand over the goo on you and send it to the inheritance goo. After the inheritance goo refines it and makes a contract with it, it will return it to you. Of course, you can also use the goo on you to exchange for another, more powerful contract goo." After a pause, she continued, "Don't think that there are any disadvantages after it is transformed into contract goo. On the contrary, with the second refinement and contract of the inheritance goo, the potential of the goo will be greatly excavated. Your goo will evolve faster, and your strength will advance by leaps and bounds." Sure enough, after hearing Bai Shanxi's answer, Shun Lian's heart sank, and he wanted to retreat. "No matter how many benefits there are, I can't afford it," Shun Lian thought to himself, but his expression did not change. He replied, "I want to think about it for a while before I make a decision. Is that okay?" "You refuse?" Bai Yuanhai was stunned when he heard this. He could not believe it. Joining the Min Mountain sect was a great opportunity that others could not get even if they begged for it. "Huh." Bai Shanxi was obviously a little disappointed and shook his head slightly. However, he still smiled generously and handed Shun Lian an iron token engraved with the seal of the Min Mountain sect's elders. He said sincerely, "Everyone has his own ambition. It is good for young people to have ideas. If you have made up your mind, you can come to the Min Mountain to find me at any time. With this token, you can go unimpeded in the Min Mountain." "Thank you, Senior Bai." Shun Lian quickly took it. Then, Bai Shanxi left with Bai Yuanhai. "Benefactor, I will wait for you at the Min Mountain." Before leaving, Bai Yuanhai repeatedly persuaded Shun Lian to think about it. He was very sincere. Shun Lian returned to the study. After sitting quietly for a while, he suddenly took a piece of rice paper and spread it out. He held a brush and started to write and draw. He first wrote the two words aristocratic family and drew a circle under it. Then he wrote the two words sect and drew a pyramid under it. Aristocratic family is like a demon. Bloodline goo is like a companion goo. Using blood to refine goo. Using goo to strengthen the blood. This is a virtuous cycle, just like this circle. In a sect, inheritance goo is above all contract goo. The sect master has absolute hegemony and controls the fate of all the sect members. To put it nicely, it is called many people picking up firewood to make the fire bigger. To put it bluntly, this is a pyramid scheme. In the end, only a few people stand at the top of the pyramid. The others are exploited and can be abandoned. Comparing aristocratic families and sects, aristocratic families have many strong people and are stronger individually. Sects are more united and rely on the strength of the group. Because of this, sects have a fatal weakness. Sects rely too much on their members. The more members there are, the bigger the pyramid scheme, and the stronger the sect master standing at the top of the pyramid. As long as the aristocratic families adopt a targeted massacre strategy, they can quickly weaken the sect master's strength. Therefore, for countless years, Aristocratic families have steadily suppressed sections. Sects can only dominate a region, but aristocratic families can dominate the world. Shen Lian looked at the aristocratic families and sects with a condescending gaze and gradually saw through them. I can't go to a sect. What a joke. Turning all the goo on me in a contract goo and submitting to inheritance goo is impossible. Shen Lian had the life twister goo. It must be exposed. He could not let anyone find out. Sects were a pit. He naturally would not push himself into the fire pit. After making up his mind, Shen Lian quickly threw the matter of joining Min Mountain's sect to the back of his mind and focused on solving the crisis in front of him. 17 days later, Family Lin will send people to New Kuan to transfer people. These people will be recommended by Man Boyu. There are two ways to solve the crisis. One is to find a way to prevent Man Boyu from recommending me. The other is to find a way to prevent Man Boyu from recommending me. The former was to confuse Man Boyu and make him give up recommending Shen Lian. The latter was to create objective conditions to prevent Man Boyu from recommending Shen Lian. For example, Shen Lian happened to be seriously injured. You can't send a wounded person to the battlefield. It's very unusual for the Lin family to transfer people from the Fury Kuan faction. There's a conspiracy behind it. It's very likely that Man Boyu is behind this. He's digging a hole for me. It's very difficult to make him give up on me. Maybe I should find a person or a monster to fight, and then pretend to be seriously injured and lie in bed. I should be able to avoid this disaster. After thinking for a while, ideas gradually became clear in his mind and became feasible plans. That afternoon, Wu Yinzong, the coroner of the Song dynasty, came and reported, "Elder Jin Jinshu has arrived. He is waiting outside." Shen Lian raised his eyebrows slightly. "Invite him in." After a while, the door opened. An old man with white hair and a white beard, wearing a luxurious brocade robe, walked in shakily with a walking stick. The old man was very old. He looked senile. His teeth had all fallen out, and his eyes were almost closed. He looked listless. Of course, this was Jin Jinshu. The middle-aged man accompanying Jin Jinshu was his son, Jin Yunlong. He had a big belly and a mustache. When he smiled, he looked like the Methriao Buddha. This was Jin Renyu's father. "Greetings, Elder Shun." The father and son did not lose their manners. They bowed and saluted. "Don't be so polite. Please sit down." Shen Lian raised his hand and smiled. "Serve the tea." After they sat down, Shen Lian first looked at the corner of the Song dynasty, and then slowly said, "Elders of the Jin family, I heard from the corner of the Song dynasty that you are here for your family's daughter, Jin Renyu." Jinshu nodded. He wanted to say something, but his speech was not smooth. His pronunciation was very vague, making it difficult for others to understand. Seeing this, Jin Yunlong leaned close to his father's ear and said loudly, "Father, let me say it." Jinshu nodded and did not say anything. Jin Yunlong apologized. "My father is old, and his speech is not good. I'm sorry. Don't mention it. Who doesn't have an old time?" Shen Lian smiled and did not mind. Jin Yunlong thought for a while and sighed. He said in a deep voice, "My daughter, Jin Renyu, was mischievous. She sneaked out of the house and accepted your gang's reward mission. She went to Kanjia Mountain to explore and got into big trouble. We came here to beg Elder Shun to take action and save my daughter, Jin Renyu." "Save?" Shen Lian frowned. What did this mean? So the Jin family did not come to extort money, but were sure that Jin Renyu was not dead? He quickly turned to the coroner of the Song dynasty. The news of Jin Renyu's death was provided by the coroner of the Song dynasty. He was an eyewitness. He asked seriously, "Did you see Jin Renyu die with your own eyes?" The coroner of the Song dynasty did not dare to be careless. He immediately described the scene in detail. He said, "I saw it with my own eyes. The snake monster had Jin Renyu in its mouth. According to the situation at that time, Jin Renyu could not have survived." He glanced at the two elders of the Jin family. "I have told them about this matter again and again." Chapter 123. Jin Renyu is still alive. Shen Lian was very surprised to hear this. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "How do you know?" "Someone has seen my daughter." "Who has seen her? Where?" "Kanjia Mountain." Jin Yunlong suddenly stammered and tried to change the topic. He couldn't justify himself. Under Shan Lian's continuous questioning, he finally stamped his feet anxiously and said, "If she's not dead, then she's not dead. We know that my daughter is still alive." Shan Lian was speechless. He patiently asked again, "Do you have any strong evidence?" Jin Yunlong widened his eyes and said anxiously, "Evidence, no, but my daughter is definitely still alive. F*CK. What's wrong with this person?" Shan Lian was completely speechless. He finally understood why the corner of the Song dynasty said that the Jin family was pestering him endlessly. The Jin family was indeed somewhat unreasonable. Your daughter was held in the mouth of a snake demon. How could she still be alive? You insisted that she was still alive, but you couldn't provide any solid evidence. How could others believe you? Do you think I'm a fool? Shan Lian's face darkened. He said indifferently, "Every profession has its own rules. Nu Kuan's bounty mission is public. Everyone voluntarily accepts the mission, assumes the risk, and assumes the responsibility. No matter whether Jin Renyu is still alive or not, Nu Kuan has no obligation to save her. Please understand. See the guests out." Wu Yinzong immediately stepped forward. He raised his hand in the direction of the door and said coldly, "Please." Seeing this scene, the corner of the Song dynasty looked at Shan Lian in awe. He sighed in his heart. As expected of an elder, he dealt with it decisively and without any hesitation. Domineering, he couldn't help but straighten his back. Jin Yunlong was anxious. "Elder Shun, please believe us. My daughter is really still alive." Shan Lian turned a deaf ear. Wu Yinzong understood tacitly. He raised his eyebrows and walked directly in front of Jin Yunlong. He said with a sullen face, "Please, if you don't leave, I'll beat you up. Elder Shun, please calm down. Please listen to this old man." At this time, Jin Shu stood up from his seat unsteadily and cupped his hands slightly. For some reason, his accent became much clearer. "Father." Jin Yunlong's face suddenly changed. He turned to look at his father and trembled nervously. Jin Huashu waved his hand and smiled bitterly. "If we don't explain this matter clearly, Elder Shin won't help us." His eyes opened slightly and emitted an exquisite divine light. His entire aura suddenly skyrocketed, and he exuded an awe-inspiring aura. Seeing this, Wu Yinzong and the corner of the Song dynasty were shocked. "Old thing, are you not going to play dead anymore?" Shan Lian sneered in his heart. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "You can leave." Shan Lian waved his hand. Wu Yinzong and the corner of the Song dynasty, who were in a daze, came back to their senses. They couldn't help but look at Jin Shu suspiciously and quickly left. Shan Lian calmly turned to Jin Shu, who was no longer pretending to be deaf and dumb. He smiled and said, "You are indeed one, Sanyi's sworn brother. You really have hidden your strength well." Jin Shu sighed and smiled bitterly. "Elder Shun, please forgive me. This old man really has difficulties that he can't speak of. He didn't mean to deceive you." "Oh, what difficulties?" Shan Lian didn't care about anything else and wanted to get to the bottom of it. Jin Shu was silent for a moment. His expression became extremely serious. He slowly said, "Actually, our Jin family is a bloodline aristocratic family." Even though Shan Lian had always been calm and collected, when he heard Jin Huashu's sudden words, he fell into a great shock. Aristocratic family? Shan Lian held his breath. He had already confirmed that there was no Yuan Shui River in Ronghua City, so naturally, there was no aristocratic family. However, after carefully looking at Jin Shu's attitude, he didn't seem to be lying. Besides, no one would lie about this kind of thing. Some people pretended to be masters to cheat money and women, and some pretended to be rich people to hook up with beautiful women. However, it was not easy to pretend to be an aristocratic family. Jin Shu paused for a moment, and then continued. "To be exact, the Jin family is a declining bloodline aristocratic family. Its former glory is long gone. Even the glorious history of the Jin family has been deliberately erased. So few people know about it. In the old man's generation, The bloodline of the Jin family had become extremely thin, and the family was in decline. Because of the fear of the revenge of the enemy, the whole family had to move from the Central Plains to Ronghua City. They had to keep a low profile and quit the martial arts world to do business. Fortunately, when the old man was 30 years old, he met Wan San and his brother, who were working hard in the Central Plains from the north. He was impressed by his speech and ambition, and appreciated his courage and talent. So, he gave him some money to support his business. Later, he opened the Gu Garden in Ronghua City, and the Jin family benefited from it. Gradually, the Jin family became rich. Shunlian's tone slowed down, but he was still full of doubts. He hurriedly asked, "Is that so? Then how are you so sure that Jinrenyu is still alive?" "It's bloodline sensing." Jin Shu slightly lowered his head, and his expression was obscure and complicated. As long as there is a trace of bloodline left in the bloodline aristocratic family, no matter how far away they are, they can sense whether the other party is still alive. Especially the direct bloodline, blood is thicker than water, so the sensing is even stronger. Although the old man's bloodline is thin, and his son Jin Yunlong has no bloodline at all, his granddaughter Jinrenyu is the descendant with the strongest bloodline in the Jin family in the past 100 years. The old man can still clearly sense that his granddaughter is still alive. Bloodline sensing. Shunlian was speechless. After such a long time, it turned out to be this reason. But thinking about it, as long as Jin Yunlong mentioned bloodline sensing to others, the Jin family's details would be exposed. Obviously, this was the Jin family secret. Even the willful and mischievous Jinrenyu might not even know that she was also a bloodline aristocratic family. This is interesting. The snake monster caught Jinrenyu, but didn't eat her. Is it because of her bloodline? Shunlian stared at Jin Shu and asked meaningfully. To be honest, the old man also can't figure out why the snake monster didn't eat his granddaughter. In order to prevent the enemy from finding out, the old man used a secret technique on her when she was young to seal the power of her bloodline. He also never mentioned the Jin family's past to her. The secret on her body shouldn't be discovered. Jin Shu also couldn't figure it out. Shunlian pondered and didn't say anything. After a long time, he raised his head and said, "I understand your difficulties. Through bloodline sensing, you are sure that Jinrenyu is still alive. She should be in the snake cave of Kanjia Mountain and fell into the hands of Krite. For some reason, Krite didn't eat her, and you want to save her. Is that right?" Jin Yunlong answered first. "That's right. Elder Shun, please help us no matter what." Shunlian's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help laughing. "For such a big matter, why didn't you ask gang leader for help? Instead, you came to me?" The Jin father and son looked at each other and sighed. Jin Shu smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, the old man also planned to ask gang leader man for help. But before that, the old man first went to ask brother Wan San what to do. Brother Wan San said that gang leader man is a hypocrite and can't be trusted. In New Kuin, only you, Elder Shun, have the courage and insight to go to Kanjia Mountain to rescue my granddaughter." Shunlian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Wan San thinks too highly of me." Jin Shu's expression became serious, and he said seriously, "The old man believes in brother Wan San's vision. As long as Elder Shun agrees to help, regardless of whether or not we can rescue my granddaughter, the old man is willing to immediately offer a generous gift." Shunlian raised his eyebrows and listened with interest. Jin Shu said, "Although the Jin family has declined, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. We still have some treasures passed down from our ancestors." As he said this, Jin Shu shook the jade ring on his thumb. Whoosh whoosh, two boxes appeared out of thin air. One was big, and the other was small. The big one was a rectangular wooden box, and the small one was a common brocade box used to store goo worms. Jin Yunlong immediately stepped forward and opened the two boxes. The big box contained a powerful and cold dragon claw that was only half a meter long. The small box contained a goo worm that resembled a bride's wedding dress. It was bright red. Jin Shu introduced, This is the dragon claw of an adult true dragon. About 300 years ago, an evil dragon flew ashore from the Western Sea. It was ferocious and evil. In order to oppress the world, it devoured countless people. The Jin family's ancestors were duty-bound to punish it. They fought for half a day and broke off one of its claws to refine it into a demon weapon. With his dragon claw, combined with the dragon heart goo, it will be able to display great power. Jin Jinshu clearly understood Shun Lian's situation from Wansani. The gift he gave was also carefully selected and targeted. Shun Lian's gaze focused. His pupils shone brightly, and his heart thumped twice. In the next moment, the dragon claw moved as if responding to him. It became bigger, and the dragon scales on it became brighter, as if they were alive. Seeing this scene, the Jin family father and son held their breaths and showed an expression of disbelief. A moment later, Jin Jinshu laughed and exclaimed with joy, "It seems this dragon claw and Elder Shun hit it off very well." According to the records, the demon weapon made from the dragon's body is very powerful, but very few people can use it. But goo masters who have the dragon heart goo can easily refine and use the dragon-type demon weapon. Today, I can confirm that this saying is indeed true. Dragon claw demon weapon, excellent. Shun Lian's eyes shone, and his heart was burning with passion as he praised from the bottom of his heart. Jin Jinshu smiled and pointed at the goo. Brother Wansan said that Elder Shun had a lot of secrets in his heart and is not someone who stays under others for a long time. Moreover, New Kuin is treacherous and unpredictable. Even if you want to be obedient, others may not be able to tolerate you. This goo may be able to help you deal with it calmly and turn the situation around. Hearing this, Shun Lian's face twitched slightly. This goo looks like a bride's wedding dress. Its name is Wedding Dress Goo. Is it demonic goo? Jin Jinshu said with heavy breathing. Demonic goo? Shun Lian tilted his head and asked in confusion. It is a very demonic goo. Wedding dress goo, as the name suggests, I wear the wedding dress made by others. Wedding dress goo is a mother goo and can split into many child goo. Chapter 124. There was once a demonic path goo master who refined the wedding dress goo and created the wedding dress divine sect. He called himself the wedding dress sect leader and took in believers. He continued to seize the primeval essence of the believers and gradually developed into a large force that dominated a region. Many clans were wary of him and finally joined forces to exterminate him. One of them was my Jin clan's ancestor. This wedding dress goo was also a spoil of war obtained from that extermination battle. Jin Hua Shu spoke of his ancestor's glorious past with an unconcealable pride on his face. Shun Lian's breathing paused, and he squinted his eyes. Those believers are not fools. How could they be willing to have their primeval essence absorbed by others? Jin Hua Shu said, "This is related to the child goo's characteristics. The child goo has almost no evolution limit. The longer it is nurtured in the body, the higher its evolution. Moreover, the efficiency of condensing primeval essence is also beyond imagination. Goo masters can obtain extremely powerful strength in an extremely short period of time. Precisely because the child goo's evolution is too fast, the child goo's aperture is often filled with a huge amount of primeval essence, and there is a danger of it exploding. It needs to be discharged in time. This requires the owner of the mother goo to absorb the primeval essence in the child goo's body." Shun Lian frowned and thought for a while before shaking his head. "This is illogical. According to what you said, the child goo's evolution is so fast, it should be able to suppress the mother goo. Why would it allow the mother goo to absorb the primeval essence?" "Oh, it's the old man's fault for not explaining clearly." Jin Hua Shu reorganized his thoughts. The child goo actually also has a limit. That is, it is restricted by the mother goo's rank. Simply speaking, if the mother goo is silver rank 1 and the child goo it splits out are white rank, then the upper limit of these child goo's evolution is silver rank 1. However, these child goo may only need a few months to evolve to silver rank 1. Let me ask you, if a person desires strength, even if he knows the dangers involved, would he be willing to accept the child goo? Shun Lian, What if someone deliberately controls the child goo's evolution speed and even gets rid of the mother goo's control? Jean Hua Shu chuckled. This is the most terrifying part of the wedding dress goo. The owner of the mother goo can make the child goo in another person's body explode with just a thought, killing without a trace. It can be said that the wedding dress goo was born to enslave people. What a vicious demonic goo. Shen Lian's expression changed. Jean Hua Shu continued. This is not the end. What I said earlier was only the refinement method of the wedding dress goo. Its true use is even more tempting. Elder Shun should know that the primeval essence condensed by different types of goo after the aperture is opened in the body has different attributes. For example, healing goo's primeval essence could only be used for healing, while defensive goo's primeval essence could not be used for attacking. And the second meaning of the wedding dress goo is to make the wedding dress for others. The primeval essence in the aperture has no attribute and can be transferred to other goo's apertures at any time, quickly changing the attribute and replenishing the expended primeval essence. Attributeless true essence. Shen Lian was shocked. Wasn't this an all-purpose power bank? The benefits were so great that Shen Lian was pleasantly surprised. He couldn't wait to snatch it and refine it. However, Shen Lian did not lose his cool. He replied, Wedding dress goo is so outstanding. It has so many benefits. Why don't you refine it yourself? As long as you refine the wedding dress goo, you can quickly increase your strength and rescue Jinren. Why bother others? Jean Huashu's expression immediately turned complex, sighing bitterly. Of course we want to refine the wedding dress goo and take it for ourselves, but, sigh, wedding dress goo is a demonic goo. At the same time, it is also a king-type goo. Only those with the aura of a king can refine it successfully. This goo has already been passed down in our Jin clan for several generations, but no one has been able to refine it. Now, wedding dress goo has already degenerated to white grade, and no one can refine it anymore. I'm afraid it will dissipate soon. Shen Lian understood. After saying so much, Jin clan's gift to him was mainly the dragon claw demon weapon. The wedding dress goo was only a bonus. Being seen through by Shen Lian at once, Jin clan's father and son were a little embarrassed. The only treasure Jin clan could take out was the dragon claw, their family heirloom. The wedding dress goo was on the verge of dissipating. There was no use in keeping it, so they might as well take it out to show their sincerity. Elder Shun has great talent and bold vision. You're overflowing with dominance. You are definitely not an ordinary person. You can definitely refine this wedding dress goo. Jean Hua Shu smiled apologetically, looking at Shen Lian with great expectation, his eyes filled with pleading. Shen Lian's emotions were also surging like a tide at this time. Danger is imminent. Save Jinren. Gradually, Shen Lian seemed to have thought of something, and a hint of madness emerged in his eyes. Humans have to learn to be crazy. Shen Lian muttered to himself, raising his head and saying resolutely, Good, Shen guarantees that I will do my best to save Jinren. However, I cannot guarantee the outcome. Thank you, Elder Shun. Jin clan's father and son were extremely moved, quickly bowing. In the study room on the 5th floor, Man Boyu was resting with his eyes closed. At this time, someone reported, Jin clan's father and son and Elder Shun had a secret meeting for nearly 2 hours before leaving. Man Boyu nodded, waving his hand to dismiss that person. That's good. With Jin clan's father and son diverting attention, Shen Lian will be vexed. Man Boyu smiled slightly, his eyes reflecting a cold light. There is an advantage to being in a high position. That is, you can control a person's fate at will. Since I cannot restrain Shen Lian, I might as well not suppress him. I only need to send him to his death. After sending off Jin clan's father and son, Shen Lian sat in front of his desk, closing his eyes and pondering. 2 hours later, he repeatedly thought over the entire plan, and only when he felt that there were no major omissions did he begin to act. First step, obtain Kong Yu's support. Shen Lian immediately went to find Kong Yu. At this moment, the deputy leader was deeply worried. His mind was full of his one wife and 2 concubines, his several children who were in conflict with each other, and his young grandchildren. He was worried about how to make arrangements for his funeral in advance. There was a piece of paper in front of him, holding a pen and hesitating. A person who was about to go to the battlefield was writing a will in advance. His mood could be imagined. There was no other way. He was involved in the fight between the aristocratic families, and was even used as cannon fodder. It was basically a one-way trip. Death had never been so close to him. Just as Kong Yu was sitting in front of his desk in a daze, Shen Lian came in with a smile. "Big brother, what are you thinking about?" Kong Yu raised his head, looking at Shen Lian, suddenly sighed with emotion. "It's good to be young, free, and unrestrained." Shen Lian understood the reluctance and concern in his words, smiling bitterly. "I also have a family. How can I be free and unrestrained?" "Then how can you still smile?" Kong Yu rolled his eyes. Shen Lian smiled confidently. "Because I thought of a good idea which should be able to prevent us from being involved in the fight between the Lin and Huang families." Kong Yu suddenly sat up straight, staring at him. "What good idea? Tell me quickly. My heart is not good. Don't joke with me." "The specific plan is a secret for now." Shen Lian spoke in riddles, looking at Kong Yu seriously. "I came here to ask you to promise me one thing." Kong Yu said blankly, "What is it? Just say it." "Big brother, no matter what happens next, you have to support me or stay out of it. As long as you can do this, I can guarantee that you and I will not be involved in the fight between the Lin and Huang families." Shen Lian said very seriously. Kong Yu was stunned, thinking for a while, nodding. "Okay, I promise you." Then Shen Lian came back and summoned Wu Yinzong. "Elder, what can I do for you?" Wu Yinzong ran over hurriedly with a flattering smile on his face. Recently, whenever Shen Lian had something to do, he would summon him instead of Li Su. This kind of favor made him very proud. Shen Lian looked at him and said coldly, "Wu Yinzong, what's wrong with you? Why did I hear that you are very timid?" "What? That bastard spread rumors about me." Wu Yinzong couldn't bear it anymore and was very angry. "Elder, please don't believe these rumors. There must be some villains slandering me. I followed you to fight against the Black Tiger Stockade Village, and my courage has been proven. I didn't lose face for you. Well, of course I won't believe these rumors." Shen Lian's face softened. "However, there's one thing that makes me very angry. Someone actually spread rumors about the gang leader." "Ah," Wu Yinzong blinked. "What rumors?" He didn't hear any rumors. "This news will spread very quickly, so there's no harm in telling you in advance. The Lin and Huang families are about to break out into a war. Logically speaking, the disputes between the families shouldn't involve us low-level Jianghu gangs. However, Family Lin unexpectedly wants to transfer people from New Kuan to help in the war. Among them, they named Gong Sunji, Yuan In, Rong Chun, and Liang Qizhu, the four elders. This was originally a secret, but unexpectedly, someone got the news in advance and began to spread rumors. They said that the reason why Family Lin transferred people from New Kuan was because the gang leader deliberately set a trap to suppress dissidents. The purpose was to send the four elders to their deaths. Shen Lian said angrily. Wu Yinzong tried hard to digest the information, and a look of shock gradually appeared on his face. He couldn't help but echo, "Outrageous! Who's tired of living? How dare they spread rumors and stir up trouble to confuse people?" Shen Lian slapped the table, filled with righteous indignation. "You're absolutely right. The gang leader is a magnanimous person. He won't care about these kinds of rumors. However, after thinking about it, I can't just ignore it." Wu Yinzong quivered and said excitedly, "Elder, what do you think?" Shen Lian lowered his voice and said, "I've received accurate information. The person who first spread the rumors is a guy called Shi Songtian. Do you know this person well?" "Shi Songtian? He's a subordinate of the elders of Bulinkong." Wu Yinzong naturally knew. He was Shen Lian's right-hand man, and Shi Songtian was Bulinkong's right-hand man. Shen Lian said righteously, "No matter who's backing him, it's disrespectful to spread rumors about the gang leader." "Wu Yinzong, do you have the guts to arrest Shi Songtian and interrogate him properly?" Wu Yinzong immediately patted his chest and said, "I dare." Shirt Song Tian is despicable and shameless. I've long felt that there was something wrong with him. This time, I'll definitely turn him inside out. Chapter 125. The Tasting Fragrance Pavilion was a unique restaurant in Ronghua City. Master Shi, you are here. The waiter was all smiles as he warmly welcomed a white-clothed swordsman with high cheekbones and thin eyebrows into the store. Shirt Song Tian was a regular customer of the Tasting Fragrance Pavilion, so the waiter knew him. Moreover, every time he entered the restaurant, the waiter would call him Master Shi, which attracted a lot of awe in the restaurant, which made him quite proud. Shirt Song Tian, with a bit of arrogance on his face, held his sword and walked to the room by the window. Every time he came, he would eat in this room. Master Shi, please wait for a moment. The dishes will be served soon. The waiter took off the rag on his shoulder and quickly wiped the clean and shiny table with a smile. No hurry, I have an appointment with a friend today. You can ask the chef to prepare a few more dishes. Shirt Song Tian sat down casually and looked out of the window. He happened to see a yellow curtain carriage coming from afar. After a while, the yellow curtain carriage stopped in front of the Tasting Fragrance Pavilion, and a woman in a silk dress came out of the carriage. She was quite beautiful, and if it weren't for the fact that she was a little old and her waist was a little out of shape, she would definitely be a stunning beauty. The woman in the silk dress slowly walked into the restaurant. She glanced around and saw Shi Song Tian with a bright smile, so she quickly walked over. Sister Li, I haven't seen you for a long time. Please sit down. Shirt Song Tian's eyes were full of enthusiasm. He immediately flicked his sleeve and swept the chair, as if he wanted to brush off the dust. Senior Sister Li smiled and sat down. She said, Junior brother Shi, you're still so considerate. I haven't seen you for many years, and you've become more and more energetic. You're not like me, who's getting old. Shirt Song Tian looked serious and said, Nonsense. You are getting more and more beautiful, and you are getting more and more mature. Then, he couldn't help but touch her hand. Sister Li just raised her hand to pick up the teacup and casually avoided his touch. Shirt Song Tian embarrassedly took back his hand, and his face became cold. He quickly shouted, Waiter, quickly serve the dishes. Then he said, Sister, the dishes in the Tasting Fragrance Pavilion have a special flavor. You will definitely like it. Sister Li chuckled and said, Brother Shi and I are childhood friends, and we have the same master. We have been together for a long time, so naturally, our tastes are very similar. If you like it, I will definitely like it. Soon, the table was filled with food and wine. The two of them reminisced and drank one cup after another. Shirt Song Tian gradually became tipsy. Seeing this, Senior Sister Li's eyes turned, and she took the initiative to pour Shi Song Tian some wine. She said, Junior brother Shi, I heard that the Lin and Huang families are about to go to war. Is this news accurate? Shi Song Tian narrowed his eyes and asked, Senior Sister, how have you been after marrying that young master of the Wei family? Senior Martial Sister Li was startled. She sighed and said, It's all in the past. Why are you still talking about him? You and I have made a mistake due to a freak combination of factors. We are already not fated to be together. I am already a married woman. Marrying a chicken will follow the chicken. Marrying a dog will follow the dog. There is nothing good or bad about it. Suddenly, Shi Song Tian sneered and grabbed Senior Sister Li's waist, forcefully pulling her into his arms. Junior brother Shi. Senior Martial Sister Li was shocked. She struggled with all her might, but she did not dare to shout. Shi Song Tian sneered and said sternly, Senior Martial Sister, you are so cruel. I was infatuated with you and gave you everything. You know my feelings, but you thought you were noble and looked down on me. You even despised the poor and loved the rich, so you married that trash surnamed Wei. Now, that trash with the surname Wei is really useless, and I'm thriving in the Fury Kuan gang. I'm outstanding, and my status is second only to the elders. I've even killed a lot of demons. Even if I want to destroy the Wei family, it's just a matter of a word. Junior brother Shi, don't be like this. I know I have wronged you. I have wronged you. Senior Martial Sister Li's face turned pale, and she was terrified. Shut up, bitch. Shirt Song Tian sneered and revealed a ferocious expression. Do you think I don't know why you asked me to come? The previous generation of the Wei family had a death feud with a monster. At the time of crisis, a foreigner from the family Lin happened to pass by and drove the monster away. That monster was afraid of the family Lin and did not dare to seek revenge on the Wei family. However, not long ago, the foreigner from the family Lin told the Wei family that the war between the Lin and Huang families was imminent. He could not take care of the Wei family and asked you to be prepared. The Wei family suddenly lost its protection. However, today was different from the past. The Wei family had been living extravagantly these years and almost lost all their property. They could not afford to hire retainers to protect the Wei family. It could be said that the Wei family was in a precarious situation. You have no choice but to think of me, right? Senior sister Li pursed her lips and nodded. Junior brother sure is wise. This is indeed the case. I hope you can help the Wei family. No, help senior sister Li to get through this difficult time. Okay? Okay, but how will you repay me? Sure, Song Tian grinned. His hand had reached into senior marshal sister Li's clothes and wantonly touched her. Senior marshal sister Li's expression was numb. Her teary eyes were full of shame and anger. Noble senior marshal sister Li, didn't you look down on me? I'll strip you naked now and see how delicate you are. Shirt Song Tian looked crazy. He turned senior marshal sister Li over and pressed her on the table, pulling her clothes. Senior marshal sister Li's tears finally flowed out. Until now, she suddenly realized that Shirt Song Tian had never troubled the Wei family all these years. In fact, he was also afraid of the family Lin. It was ridiculous that she had always thought that Shirt Song Tian was magnanimous and had let bygones be bygones. She did not know that people's hearts were like demons. Some people were even more terrible than demons. Husband, I'm sorry. Senior marshal sister Li closed her eyes and no longer resisted. 2 lines of tears rolled down her face. Suddenly, bang! The door of the private room was kicked open and 6 or 7 people rushed in. The leader laughed mockingly. Hey, it's broad daylight. You adulterous couple really know how to play. Wu Yinzong, what are you doing? Shirt Song Tian, who was taking off his pants, was shocked. He quickly jumped away from senior marshal sister Li. His plan was ruined, and he was angry. Shirt Song Tian, you are really arrogant. You dare to spread rumors and slander the faction leader. You have committed a great disrespect. Arrest him. Wu Yinzong waved his hand and shouted. The people around him immediately swarmed forward. What rumors? Shirt Song Tian was a ruthless person. Seeing that the situation was not good, he immediately pulled out his sword. A cold light flashed, and the sword shadows flashed. Be careful of his sword shadow goo. Wu Yinzong's eyebrows furrowed. He pushed his hands forward and raised the bronze light shield to rush forward. Shirt Song Tian's sword slashed down. The sword light suddenly split and turned into more than 10 sword shadows that covered the sky and earth. After a series of chaotic sounds, the bronze light shield shook violently and cracked. It actually collapsed. One of the swords immediately cut towards Wu Yinzong's right arm, scaring Wu Yinzong and forcing him to dodge. Seeing this, the rest of the people attacked Shirt Song Tian together. Sure, Song Tian's sword shadows were dense, but he couldn't stop them all by himself. He kept retreating until he was forced to the window. He clenched his teeth and jumped out of the window to escape. A swoosh was heard. A cold arrow shot out and hit Shirt Song Tian's chest right in the middle of his landing. Immediately, blood spurted out. Shirt Song Tian screamed and fell to the ground. The people Wu Yinzong arranged outside rushed forward and cut the tendons of his hand that was holding the sword. They caught him on the ground. Leader, what should we do with this woman? Someone pointed at Senior Marshal Sister Li and asked. Wu Yinzong glanced at Senior Marshal Sister Li, whose face was as pale as ash. He said with disgust, "Let this bitch do whatever she wants." The group came quickly and left quickly. After a while, Senior Marshal Sister Li woke up from her nightmare. She got up trembling and ran out of the door. Chaos is coming. People are like ants and their lives are like grass. They can't live in peace. At this time, the door of the box next door opened. Shunlian walked out slowly. He watched Senior Marshal's sister Li get into the carriage and leave in a hurry. He couldn't help but sigh. I hope the Shin family can move to Ronghua City as soon as possible. Shunlian thought for a while, then returned to New Kuan and hung up the sign for closed-door training. New Kuan was going to have a big turbulence, but it wasn't time for him to show up yet. Let the bullets, no, let the rumors fly for a while. In the backyard of a shop under New Kuan, miserable screams were heard. Brother Wu, let's talk. Shirt Song Tian, who had an arrow in his chest, was terrified. He was beaten black and blue by the leather whip. Wu Yinzong sneered. You're still so stubborn. Are you going to confess? Shirt Song Tian was speechless. What do you want me to confess? You spread the rumor that the faction leader deliberately sent the 4 elders to the family Lin in order to eliminate the dissidents. They got involved in the fight between the Lin and Huang families and sent the 4 elders to die. Is that true? What's the connection? Beat him. After a while. I'll confess. I made the rumor. Okay, give him a pen and paper and write the confession. Brother Wu, my hand's tendons are broken. I can't write. Then, I'll write it for you. You can sign it with your left hand. Wu Yinzong served him warmly and took care of everything. After that, Wu Yinzong took the confession paper and blew on the wet ink. He was so happy that his mouth was crooked. He escorted Shi Song Tian through the city and returned to New Kuan. New Kuan was suddenly bustling with noise and excitement. Wu Yinzong stood in the hall and said loudly, Everyone, come and take a look. Shi Song Tian started the rumor and slandered the faction leader. He committed a great crime of disrespect and was captured by me on the spot. He confessed to it. Wu. Shi Song Tian, who was tied up, had his mouth gagged with a rag. He couldn't make a sound. Of course, this play was carried out according to the Shun Lian's instructions. At this moment, Wu Yinzong was convinced that he was clearing the faction leader's name and making a great contribution. Naturally, he spared no effort to make a big deal out of it. He wanted the whole world to know about his heroic deed. After a while, Kong Yu, Buling Kong, Gong Sun Ji, and other high-ranking officials heard the news and rushed over. They read the confession paper one by one, and their expressions changed greatly. This confession paper was too shocking. Man Boyu kept a lot of inside information secret. Until now, no one could be sure that the Lin and Huang families would fight. However, this confession paper showed that Man Boyu had already received the news and was sure of it. He even pushed Gong Sun Ji and the other 3 elders into the fire pit. Just as Gong Sun Ji was reading the confession paper 3 times, Man Boyu finally arrived, gathering a crowd and making a ruckus. What a scandal! Man Boyu shouted angrily. Those who had nothing to do with it quickly moved away. Faction leader Kong Yu's expression was complicated. He took Gong Sun Ji's confession paper and handed it over. Chapter 126. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Man Boyu's expression became particularly interesting in an instant. This confession was half true and half false. The true part was that the war between the Lin and Huang families was imminent, and he arranged to send Gong Sun Ji, Yuan En, and Rong Chun to the battlefield. The false part was that Liang Qizhu had nothing to do with it. The core part of the whole plan was missing. In fact, he was mainly targeting Shan Lian, and Gong Sun Ji and the other 2 were secondary. He just wanted to catch them in one fell swoop. These secrets, other than Man Boyu himself, should not be known to anyone else. No. Suddenly, the irritated Man Boyu raised his head and stared straight at Kong Yu, his eyes emitting a fierce and cold light. Bitter and gloomy, his eyes were cold and detached. It was as if he was looking at a blood enemy. Kong Yu only felt a chill surging up from the soles of his feet. In an instant, his whole body turned cold, and his mind went blank. Man Boyu had never looked at him with such eyes. After all, they were comrades in arms for decades. They were as close as brothers, and they were even willing to sacrifice themselves for each other without hesitation. At least Kong Yu thought so. There was a reason why Man Boyu's first reaction was to find Kong Yu. A while ago, After Shun Lian broke into the Black Tiger stockade and drove away the Wind Demon, Man Boyu realized that no one in New Kuan could suppress Shun Lian. If they wanted to deal with him, they could only borrow strength from outside. Therefore, Man Boyu actively contacted the head of the family Lin family, Lin Yuanjin, and expressed New Kuan's willingness to participate in the war. Lin Yuanjin didn't know what Man Boyu was planning. Of course, it was a good thing that someone volunteered to help in the war. He was naturally happy to see it happen and push the boat with the current. As for who New Kuan sent to participate in the war and how many people to send, it was completely up to Man Boyu. Man Boyu's move was smooth, and even he himself thought it was a stroke of genius. Everyone thought that it was the family Lin who ordered the transfer of manpower, and it was the family Lin who sent everyone to die on the battlefield. So they only resented the family Lin. On the other hand, the family Lin thought that the people of New Kuan took the initiative to participate in the war and were indeed loyal, and it was all Man Boyu's credit. How perfect! Unexpectedly, there was a careless mistake. Lin Yuanjin didn't seem to take this matter seriously. He didn't plan in secret and acted carelessly. So, one of Kong Yu's friends found out about it and immediately reported it to Kong Yu. Kong Yu was straightforward and forthright. He did not think too much about it. He only thought that the Lin family wanted to transfer people to help in the battle. He even wanted to discuss with Man Boyu to see if he could push this matter off. The arrow on the bow has to be released. Man Boyu had a guilty conscience. He was afraid that Kong Yu would notice something. So he made up his mind and let Kong Yu lead the team to push Kong Yu into the fire pit. In fact, if Kong Yu hadn't received the news in advance, he wouldn't have been involved at all. The people who were sent out in the end were Shun Lian and Gong Sun Ji, the three traitors. Because of this, Man Boyu's first thought after reading the confession was that Kong Yu had noticed something and leaked the news, and Shi Tsungtian found out about it. Shi Tsungtian couldn't keep his mouth shut and spread the news everywhere. Wu Yinzong caught him red-handed, which led to the current situation. However, when Man Boyu stared at Kong Yu coldly, he suddenly realized that Kong Yu had a blank look on his face and didn't look guilty at all. His heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help thinking about it. Kong Yu was a straightforward man. You didn't use your brain when you could use your hands, and you trusted him very much. You wouldn't do such a thing. Then how did Shi Tsungtian get this inside information? At this time, Belinkong stepped out from the crowd with a straight face. He cupped his hands and said, "Gang leader, this is a serious matter. We should gather all the elders and interrogate Shi Tsungtian in the meeting hall." Shi Tsungtian was his right-hand man, his confidant. If this person really slandered the gang leader, Belinkong couldn't absolve himself from blame. He might even be implicated because of this. His face was gloomy and very serious. His eyebrows were knitted into a knot. However, Belinkong knew Shi Tsungtian well. He wasn't the kind of person who would do such a stupid thing. There must be something else going on. He should be given a chance to explain himself. Therefore, Belinkong proposed a public trial to show that he was upright and not afraid of slandering people. Sure enough, Shi Tsungtian whimpered and nodded quickly. He looked like he couldn't wait for it to happen. Man Boyu didn't want a public trial. He was afraid that Shi Tsungtian would talk nonsense. After thinking for a while, he said slowly, "Yes, we should have a public trial. However, I have other things to deal with today. Let's arrange it for tomorrow afternoon." Belinkong glanced at Shi Tsungtian, who kept winking at him for help. He asked, "How should we deal with Shi Tsungtian?" Man Boyu shook the confession and said, "Put him in custody for the time being." Wu Yinzong was secretly delighted. He hurriedly said, "Yes, sir." He turned around and escorted Shi Tsungtian to the prison. Then, everyone dispersed with different expressions. Man Boyu was worried sick. After returning to the study, he immediately ordered someone to summon Wu Yinzong. "Greetings, faction leader." Wu Yinzong arrived quickly with a smile on his face. He looked like he was waiting to be praised. Man Boyu smiled and said, "Wu Yinzong, you've been in the faction for many years. You've worked hard and made great contributions. A while ago, you helped Elder Shin kill the traitor Chao Cheng. Your performance is outstanding. You deserve to be praised. Wu Yinzong was overjoyed. He hurriedly replied, I'm willing to serve faction leader with all my heart. I won't hesitate. Man Boyu praised Wu Yinzong a few more times. Then he stopped smiling and said, Well, let's talk about Shi Tsongtan. Wu Yinzong took a deep breath. He was calm and unhurried. Shun Lian had expected that Man Boyu would talk to Wu Yinzong. He had told him in advance how to answer. It's like this. I met Shi Tsongtian by chance the day before yesterday. I saw him, but he didn't see me. At that time, he was talking with someone. He mentioned faction leader in their conversation. I listened carefully and heard the contents of the confession. I believed that Shi Tsongtian was spreading rumors to slander faction leader, so I dealt with him decisively and arrested him. Wu Yinzong answered methodically. Wu Yinzong's heart was filled with gratitude when he said this. He remembered what Shun Lian had told him. I've made great contributions recently. I've been in the limelight too much. Faction leader doesn't know how to reward me. The other elders are also jealous of me. After thinking about it, I think it's better to keep a low profile. This time, you'll be the one to take the credit for arresting Shi Tsongtian. You know how to answer, right? Wu Yinzong understood immediately and responded calmly. Man Boyu frowned slightly and asked, Did you ask Elder Shun before arresting Shi Tsongtian? Wu Yinzong shook his head and said, Elder Shun has been in closed-door training all this time. I couldn't see him, so I made the decision myself. So Elder Shun doesn't know about this? Yes. Man Boyu nodded. His expression was a little uncertain. You can leave now. Kong Yu went back to his room. His mind was full of Man Boyu's gaze. He suddenly felt that Man Boyu was very strange. He wasn't the person he was familiar with. Gradually, a terrible thought emerged uncontrollably. Kong Yu's hands and feet turned cold. Could it be that Shi Tsongtian isn't spreading rumors? Shi Tsongtian isn't spreading rumors. In Gong Sunji's room, Yuan and Rongchun came back with Gong Sunji. As soon as the door was closed, Rongchun suddenly said this. We're in big trouble. Gong Sunji gasped. He raised his eyebrows and said, Why do you say that? Rongchun sneered and said, Let me ask you. The #1 aristocratic family in the north has such a strong foundation. What does it mean to suddenly transfer manpower from a Jianghu gang? Yuan stopped breathing and said in a low voice, It means that family Lin has no more successors. They're going to lose the war. Is that possible? Rongchun spread out her hands and said seriously, The Lin and Huang families haven't started the war yet. Why would family Lin transfer manpower for no reason? It makes the people below panic and panic. The three of us used to follow Chao Yuqing. It's the same as being rebellious. Man Boyu has been holding a grudge against us. Rongchun's expression was gloomy, and she sighed in a low voice. Hearing this, Yuan and Gong Sunji's expressions became very ugly. After a while, Gong Sunji was flustered and exasperated. He smashed the teacup and said angrily, Man Boyu, you're so cruel. Shoo! Yuan hurriedly held him down and said in a low voice, Be careful. The walls have ears. Gong Sunji scolded angrily. Old man, you say one thing on the surface and another behind our backs. Yuan's face was pale. He said in horror, Is there any use in just scolding? Hurry up and think of a way. The three of them were originally hugging each other tightly. This dangerous situation made them hug each other even tighter. In Bu Lingkong's room, Liang Qizhu sat quietly and played with his teacup. Qizhu, do you think Shi Tsongtian's confession is true or false? Bu Lingkong's expression was serious. He seemed very uncertain. Liang Qizhu, on the other hand, was unusually calm. He glanced at him and said expressionlessly, I'll have to ask you. Shi Tsongtian is your man. Bu Lingkong was stunned. He frowned and said, What do you mean by that? Nothing. If Shi Tsongtian's confession is true, then let me ask you, how did he get this inside information? Liang Qizhu said coldly. He threw the teacup on the table, and the tea spilled out. Bu Lingkong's expression changed greatly. He suddenly stood up and said emotionally, You think I told Shi Tsongtian, right? There's no such thing. Liang Qizhu was indifferent. He changed the topic and asked, Didn't the faction leader give you 3 demon puppet soldiers a while ago? This did happen. But what does this prove? Bulinkong's heart was filled with great uneasiness. Everyone is saying that the faction leader intended to pass the seat to you. It's reasonable that he discussed many important matters with you. I just didn't expect that you would betray me, Liang Qizhu said in a low voice. Endless disappointment appeared on his face. Bulinkong was simply unable to defend himself. He said anxiously, Qizhu, no matter what you think of me, I can swear to the heavens that I have never done anything wrong to you. You know better than anyone whether you have or not. Gongsun Ji and the other 2 are guilty of treason, and I have always been your competitor, the faction leader, and you have a good plan. You really want to catch all of us in one fell swoop. If you want to harm me, just do it. There's no need to be so pretentious. Liang Qizhu swung his sleeves and left. Qizhu. Bulinkong stamped his feet anxiously. Chapter 127. After interrogating Wu Yinzong, Man Boyu felt uneasy and hurriedly summoned Li Yunxing. Chief, do you have any orders? Li Yunxing smiled and bowed. Among the 8 elders, only Li Yunxing could be considered Man Boyu's confidant. There was no other reason. Li Yunxing's ability was not enough and could not be compared to the other 7 elders. He was brought up by Man Boyu and could only rely on Man Boyu. Man Boyu said indifferently, Have you heard about Shi Songtian's matter? Li Yunxing nodded. I have heard a little. Man Boyu ordered. This matter is very strange. It is not convenient for me to go to the prison to interrogate Shi Songtian. You go there for me and interrogate him clearly. Remember, no matter what Shi Songtian says, do not spread it out. Come back to see me immediately. Yes, I will go now, Li Yunxing replied and hurriedly left. Man Boyu rubbed his temples. He was frustrated and depressed. Gongsun Ji and the others might have already noticed my intentions. They are going to cause trouble. Man Boyu's face twitched. He felt mentally and physically exhausted like never before. After an unknown amount of time, Li Yunxing rushed into the room and cried out in alarm. Faction Master, something bad has happened. Shi Songtian is dead. Inside the training room, Shun Lian shook his ring. Whoosh, whoosh, 2 boxes appeared out of thin air. They were the gifts from the father and son of the Jin family. Opening the big box, Shun Lian picked up the dragon claw. This dragon claw had 5 fingers, just like a human hand. Its aura was very fierce and threatening. The moment he held it in his hand, a terrifying chill swept over him. Shun Lian could not help but shiver. Thump! In the next moment, his heart suddenly beat violently, and hot blood flowed through his body. In an instant, the frightening chill disappeared, and his body gradually became inexplicably comfortable. Dragon Heart, Goo, and Dragon Claw, they are indeed a match. Shun Lian was overjoyed, and after smiling, he tried to use the Snow Silver Primeval Essence in the Grandmaster Goo aperture to pour into the Dragon Claw. The result was out of his expectations. The Snow Silver Primeval Essence was blocked and sent back. It seems that only the Dragon Heart, Goo, can unleash the power of the Dragon Claw. Shun Lian took a deep breath and calmed his mind, gradually synchronizing with the Dragon Heart Goo. He felt a powerful aura gushing out of his body and pouring into the Dragon Claw. After the Dragon Claw absorbed the aura, it suddenly grew bigger, becoming more than a meter long. The dragon scales on the surface were as fresh as before, releasing a dazzling green light. This was not the end. A wonderful feeling emerged in Shun Lian's mind. It was as if his arm and the Dragon Claw had become one. There was no distinction between the two. He could even control the Dragon Claw with extreme precision. With a thought, the 5 sharp claws of the Dragon Claw began to move nimbly. The scene was exactly the same as when he was controlling his own fingers. There wasn't the slightest bit of stagnation, and he could do as he wished. This is too magical. Shun Lian was in disbelief. The Dragon Claw seemed to be connected with his body's nervous system, as if it was part of his body, releasing a powerful aura of life once again. As expected of the dragon race. Let me test its power. Shun Lian walked towards a bronze man and lightly waved the Dragon Claw. With a swoosh, the air around the dragon claw twisted and changed shape, as if tearing apart space, sweeping towards the bronze man with great force, only to hear a ripping sound. It was as if a piece of cloth had been torn apart, and the copper figurines were sliced into several pieces before falling to the ground. Fierce winds, swept up by the dragon's claws, swept through the air, and the dozen or so copper figurines in the surrounding area were all blown away. They crashed into the wall with loud clangs, and fell to the ground in a disorderly manner. Phew! Shun Lian breathed heavily. The dragon claw's power was undoubtedly terrifying, but qi and blood. Just waving the dragon claw once consumed a large amount of qi and blood. The dragon claw didn't consume snow silver true yuan, but sucked people's qi and blood. Even though Shan Lian's body was strong, a lot of his qi and blood was sucked away by the dragon claw in an instant, causing his face to turn slightly pale. He hurriedly let go of the dragon claw and said in shock, "Even with my body, I will be sucked into a mummy by the dragon claw in 5 minutes at most." The dragon claw is a powerful demon weapon, but it is also an inauspicious thing. Shun Lian was bewildered. After thinking for a while, the turbidity in his eyes gradually faded away, becoming pure and bright. The dragon claw can't be used for long. It can be used as a trump card to protect my life or for sneak attacks. It must be used in a limited time to display its effective power. This meant that Shan Lian had to fiercely practice the technique of using the dragon claw and master some skills that were impossible to guard against. It would be best if it was some skills that could kill in one hit. After making up his mind, Shan Lian hurriedly shook the ring. With a whoosh, 2 cultivation technique books flashed out. Dragon Claw Skill, In Claw Skill. After obtaining the Dragon Claw and Wedding Dress Goo, Shun Lian went to the library to search for relevant information. The main reason was to understand the Wedding Dress Goo, so he brought back these 2 claw skills. There were many types of claw skills: Eagle Claw Skill, Tiger Claw Skill, White Bone Claw, and so on. These claw skills were inferior to Dragon Claw Skill, because Dragon Claw had 5 fingers and was similar to a human hand. It was simple and easy to learn, allowing one to progress at a rapid pace. It had great effects and was peerlessly fierce. After an ordinary person cultivated it, their fingers would become harder and steadier. Their iron fingers could cut bricks like mud, and their hands would be like steel claws that could tear tree bark, crush rocks into powder, and tear flesh into holes. Meanwhile, In Claw Skill was different. It pursued unpredictable attacks and was sinister, very suitable for assassination and sneak attacks. Shun Lian brought back these 2 claw skills mainly to imitate them, so that he could use the dragon claw better. But he didn't expect the dragon claw to be won with his hand, and even suck his qi and blood. As a result, he had to cultivate the claw skill. Let's practice. Shun Lian calmed himself down, flipped open the dragon claw technique, and studied it carefully. Half an hour later, he closed the book, closed his eyes, and held his breath. A moment later, his eyes suddenly opened, and his 5 fingers turned into dragon claws that grabbed at the copper man's arm. After he moved his hand away, he saw that the copper man's arm had sunk in, and there were 5 deep marks on it. Next, he flipped to In Claw Skill. A day later, Shun Lian cultivated both Dragon Claw Skill and In Claw Skill, and combined the strengths of the 2, creating several moves that were suitable for Dragon Claw. Claw skills have a variety of moves. The moves that are suitable for Dragon Claw are grabbing, sweeping, twisting, pushing, digging, and so on. Especially the Dragon Claw Digging Heart. The key is to be fast, attacking fiercely, and injuring the enemy in one strike. Shun Lian slowly let out a breath of turbid air, his mind clear. Now, he had already grasped sword skills, blade skills, and claw skills. It was not a burden to have more skills. He had the aura of a grandmaster. Now, let's look at Wedding Dress Goo. Shun Lian took out 5 to 6 thick books and started reading one of them. Actually, only one of these books mentioned Wedding Dress Goo, but to conceal what goo he was looking for, he had no choice but to borrow many unrelated books. Jin Huashu has a request from me. His description of Wedding Dress Goo is definitely exaggerated, only mentioning the benefits and not the disadvantages. Moreover, He has never refined wedding dress goo. His understanding of wedding dress goo is also based on what others say. It is not very reliable. The pages of the book flipped to a certain page. Shun Lian focused his gaze and started to read it seriously. After reading for 2 hours, he closed the book and could not help but pout. Sigh, I was almost fooled by Jin Hua Shu. After Shun Lian thoroughly understood wedding dress goo, he found that wedding dress goo indeed had many benefits described by Jin Hua Shu. For example, the mother goo could split into many child goo, and the child goo could rapidly evolve and efficiently condense a tribute-less primeval essence. What Jin Hua Shu did not mention or did not know was that the method of using wedding dress goo was very troublesome. The problem was that the mother goo could split into child goo. For example, if the mother goo was white rank, it could split infinitely and obtain countless child goo, but the child goo's evolution limit was also white rank. It was naturally useless. When a mother goo evolved to bronze rank, the mother goo's splitting ability would be greatly reduced. It could only split into 100 child goo at most. And after the mother goo evolved to silver rank, it would lose its splitting ability. It could only split into 2 or 3 at most. That is, the higher the rank of the mother goo, the weaker its splitting ability. Furthermore, there was a serious problem. The child goo that split from the mother goo at bronze rank had a growth limit of bronze rank. And after the mother goo evolved to silver rank, the child goo that split from before could still only evolve to bronze rank. That is to say, if the same person wanted to obtain a child goo split from a silver rank mother goo, they would have to give up on the bronze rank child goo and start over. Rumor has it that wedding dress goo's drawbacks were resolved by the wedding dress sect leader. Thus, he created the wedding dress sect and wantonly recruited believers. But after the wedding dress sect leader was killed, the solution also disappeared. Shun Lian speechlessly shook his head, thinking deeply. After refining the wedding dress goo, I will have 5 apertures in my body. I might not be able to refine other goo. But the wedding dress goo is occupying the latrine pit. It is equivalent to occupying a spot for nothing. However, the wedding dress goo has already degenerated to white rank. It might disappear at any time. I cannot ignore it. Moreover, since the wedding dress sect leader could resolve the wedding dress goo's drawbacks, as long as I put in some effort, I should be able to resolve it. Once I resolve these drawbacks, I will be the new generation wedding dress sect leader. After pondering for a while, Shun Lian decided to refine the wedding dress goo first. He would think about it later. In the blink of an eye, it was the afternoon of the second day. In the discussion hall, Man Boyu, Kong Yu, Su Fu, and 7 elders were present. Wu Yinzong was also present. Man Boyu looked at everyone and asked, "Why is Elder Shen not here?" Wu Yinzong replied, "Elder Shen is still in closed cultivation." Man Boyu's expression sank. He shouted, "Is his closed cultivation more important, or the sex matters more important? Summon him here immediately." Kong Yu and the others heard this and looked at Man Boyu in astonishment. Everyone could see that Man Boyu was in a bad mood. Anger was written all over his face. A moment later, Shun Lian slowly walked into the discussion hall. He quickly apologized. "Everyone, I am truly sorry. I was engrossed in martial arts and did not know that something big had happened in the sect. I have sinned. I should take this as a warning and not do it again." Man Boyu waved his hand. "Sit." Shun Lian walked to his seat and sat down. Chapter 128. Song Tian is dead. Suddenly, the hall was filled with the sound of rapid breathing. Bu Linkong was stunned and exclaimed, "Faction leader, what exactly happened?" After Song Tian was sent to prison yesterday, he suddenly screamed and screamed crazily not long after. In the end, he slammed his head against the wall and died with his head broken and bleeding, the Man Boyu said in a low voice. Slammed his head against the wall? Gong Sunji exclaimed when he heard this. Did he commit suicide to escape punishment? Bu Linkong glared at him. Elder Gongsun, whether Song Tian is guilty or not is another matter. How can you say that he committed suicide to escape punishment? Gong Sunji laughed coldly. If he didn't commit suicide to escape punishment, who would slam his head against the wall and kill himself? Great, now the dead can't testify. Kong was speechless. Indeed, the dead couldn't testify, but there was another layer of meaning, which was that he was killed to keep his mouth shut. He could only defend himself. You saw the situation yesterday. Shi Tian was beaten black and blue all over his body. Perhaps some vital part of his body was injured, which caused him to go crazy and commit suicide. As he spoke, he glared at Wu Yinzong. Wu Yinzong, what do you say? Kong said angrily. This. Wu Yinzong didn't expect this. He was speechless and hurriedly defended himself. When I captured Shi Tian, he resisted fiercely. The injuries on his body were caused at that time. Even so, we were very careful and didn't cause any fatal injuries. Kong glared at him coldly and said angrily, what about after that? Did you secretly torture him? Where did that confession come from? Was it a confession made under torture? Wu Yinzong, who gave you the courage? Wu Yinzong could not help but panic and break out in cold sweat. At this moment, Shunlian waved his hand and said calmly, Faction leader, have you found a coroner to investigate the cause of Shi Tian's death? The man boy nodded. The coroner has examined him carefully. The only fatal injury on Shi Tian's body was his head, which he hit himself. Of course, the coroner also said that Shi Tian had been severely tortured when he was alive. The tendons in his arms were broken, and there were almost no intact parts of his body. There were also many injuries on his head. This could be the main cause of his madness. Obviously, Man Boy had investigated carefully and blamed Shi Tian's death on Wu Yinzong being too heavy-handed. Hearing the faction leader's words, everyone understood in hindsight. They finally understood why Man Boy had used the phrase, Wu Yinzong secretly arrested Shi Tian without any authorization from the beginning. So this was the reason. Wu Yinzong immediately broke out in cold sweat and panicked. He had messed up such a good thing, and his heart was filled with regret. Shunlian said calmly, Shi Tian slandered the faction leader. Wu Yinzong was angry and hit him a little too hard. It was to help the faction leader vent his anger, so it was pardonable. Kong said angrily, Elder Shun, you can't speak carelessly. The facts are very clear. Wu Yinzong tortured Shi Tian into a confession. This confession is invalid, and it could even be a trap. He had been waiting for this sentence. Shunlian immediately cut him off and said loudly, It's easy to prove whether or not he slandered the faction leader. You just have to ask the faction leader whether the confession is true or false. Want to be clear? Kong's heart thumped. How could the faction leader admit that the confession was true? He slowly turned to face Man Boyu. Almost at the same time, the others also looked at Man Boyu. Everyone's eyes were like needles piercing Man Boyu. The situation that Man Boyu didn't want to face the most had happened. He also knew that he couldn't escape from this matter. He had to give an explanation. Everyone, after taking a deep breath, Man Boyu's expression became serious. He said slowly, The Lin and Huang families are indeed going to war. I only received the confirmation a few days ago. In order to avoid panic, the family Lin didn't want this matter to spread. I followed the instructions and planned to tell everyone later. Sure enough, they are going to war. Everyone held their breaths. What a good Shi Tian. He's even more well-informed than the elders. Rong Chun sneered. Man Boyu quickly said, How did Shi Tian get this information? I'm also very puzzled. Maybe he has other information channels. Gong Sunji couldn't help but ask anxiously, Is the faction leader planning for us to join the war? Absolutely not. Man Boyu waved his hand and shook his head. He said flatly, About this matter, I'm going to tell everyone slowly. Not long ago, Elder Shin joined a faction and made many outstanding contributions. He even defeated the Wind Demon and became famous. Because of this, he received the family Lin's attention. The family Lin intends to select a group of talents from New Kuan. They plan to send a special envoy to New Kuan in the middle of autumn to select some talents to enter the family Lin and vigorously cultivate them. Everyone, this is a great thing. This was the excuse Man Boyu came up with after racking his brain for an entire night. Hearing the faction leader's words, everyone looked at each other. They didn't know whether they were convinced or not. Kong Yu slowly lowered his head. The last time he talked about this with Man Boyu, the Man Boyu didn't mention this at all. He only said that it was the family Lin who ordered the transfer of manpower. He couldn't do anything about it. He even asked Kong Yu to lead the team to join the war. The conversation that day and today's situation compared and collided in Kong Yu's mind. He only heard a crack, as if something in his heart was broken. That was the camaraderie that had been built over decades. It was a brotherhood that transcended bloodline. It was an indestructible trust that had been shattered. This was a lie. He was lying. Kong Yu's emotions surged. The Man Boyu was sure that he wouldn't expose his lie, so he said it without blushing or skipping a beat. The war is imminent. The family Lin doesn't have the leisure to select talents. Who can you fool with such an obvious lie? Who are you trying to fool? Kong Yu lowered his head and smiled bitterly. No one noticed how disappointed he was. He had used his whole life to see clearly what kind of person a Man Boyu was. His heart was bitterly disappointed. Ha ha ha. So that's how it is. It really is great news. Shun Lian suddenly burst into laughter. He looked very happy. He was really happy because he knew that he had won. The Man Boyu was full of lies. He had lost the people's hearts. He was simply enmeshed in a cocoon of his own making. Shun Lian smiled and said, "Faction leader, when the time comes, you must strongly recommend me. It's a rare opportunity to enter the family Lin to gain experience." Man Boyu laughed and said, "Of course. When the time comes, I'll be the first to recommend you." Shun Lian said again, "If that's the case, sure, Song Tian really did slander faction leader. His crime is extremely heinous. Even death cannot wipe out his crimes." He turned to Balinkong. His tone was sincere, and his eyes emitted a strange light. "Elder Bu, I know that you love your subordinates. However, sometimes you can't judge a book by its cover. Sure, Song Tian is an example. You should reflect on yourself." Bu Linkong stared deeply at Shun Lian, then looked at Man Boyu. He smiled bitterly and said, "Elder Shun is right. You can't judge a book by its cover. I should reflect on myself." Shun Lian stood up from his seat and said in a clear voice, "Everyone, since the family Lin wants to select talents, we should perform well. Coincidentally, I just happened to encounter a demon disaster. A girl named Jinren Yu is trapped in Kanjia Mountain. It's suspected that she fell into Krite's hands. Her life is hanging by a thread. If we can save Jinren Yu, our prestige will increase greatly, and we will be able to attract the attention of the family Lin. What does everyone think?" When Man Boyu heard this, he deeply frowned and said, "You want to attack Kanjia Mountain?" Shun Lian waved his hand and said, "No, we're only going to save someone. Is there a difference?" Man Boyu asked doubtfully. "We don't necessarily need to attack Kanjia Mountain to save someone." Shun Lian cupped his hands and bowed. "I implore everyone to lend me a hand. If we gather everyone's strength, it's still possible to save one person." Kong Yu raised his head. He remembered what Shun Lian had said to him, supporting him or staying out of the matter. He opened his mouth and said, "Saving someone is a righteous cause. I'll go." Liang Qizhu also smiled and said, "I'll go too." Bu Linkong looked at Liang Qizhu and raised his hand, saying, "I'll go." Rongchun gave a meaningful glance to Gong Sunji and Yuanin, then quickly said, "Count the three of us in." Bien Chanyu looked at them in astonishment. After a while, he recovered and nodded, saying, "Younger brother Shin's matter is my matter. Elder sister will definitely help." You all, a vice sect leader and 7 elders, actually all agreed. Only Li Yunxing was left as an elder. His face was blank, not understanding why everyone suddenly wanted to save Jinren Yu. Who is this Jinren Yu? He looked at Man Boyu, but found that Man Boyu's expression was stiff and his face was very pale. Suddenly, Kong Yu, Shun Lian, Liang Qizhu, and the rest of the 7 people all stood up and bowed to Man Boyu. "Please allow us, sect leader." Li Yunxing didn't understand what was going on, but Man Boyu did. Once these people went to Kanjia Mountain, they wouldn't be able to return before the middle of autumn. In this way, when Family Lin's special envoy arrived, he wouldn't have a single person by his side. Who would he recommend? This was no different from toying with Family Lin. There was no way to explain it. It's over, it's all over. Man Boyu sighed dejectedly and waved his hand weakly, saying, "Do as you wish." After saying this, he stood up shakily from his seat and walked out of the meeting hall dejectedly. When he walked out of the door, the sunlight shone on his body. His hair appeared abnormally pale, and his entire person seemed to have aged a lot. "Farewell, sect leader." Shun Lian bowed deeply towards Man Boyu's back. Man Boyu turned around and looked at Shun Lian. His expression was extremely complicated as he turned around and left without saying a word. The next day, Kong Yu, Shun Lian, and the rest of the 7 elders led a group of Gu masters and martial masters, majestically leaving New Kuan and heading towards Kanjia Mountain. Originally, if they rushed at full speed, it would only take 3 to 5 days to reach the destination. But because of all sorts of indescribable reasons, the journey was abnormally slow. For example, Shun Lian said his butt hurt and he couldn't ride a horse. He couldn't stand a bumpy ride and needed a carriage to pull him over. The carriage had to be spacious and comfortable. Kong Yu and the rest followed suit, and all asked for carriages. Thus, the subordinates had no choice but to get 8 large carriages. With the large carriages, they naturally couldn't walk on the small roads and had to walk on the main roads. Thus, they took a long detour and spent nearly half a month to reach the foot of Kanjia Mountain. After arriving at Kanjia Mountain, Shun Lian ordered everyone to rest for 3 days and recover their energy before moving again. Chapter 129. Night shrouded Kanjia Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, beside the bonfire, "Sai, the faction leader has recommended Li Yunxing." Kong Yu shook the letter in his hand and smiled as he sat beside Shun Lian. The old man was in a good mood. Who would have thought that such a huge crisis would pass by so easily? They managed to avoid it. Hearing this, Shun Lian had a pitiful expression and sighed. "Elderly is the faction leader's trusted aide. How enviable." "Come on." Kong Yu rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, "Tell me, did you expect this day to come?" Shun Lian played dumb and said, "What do you mean by today?" "I came to save someone and accidentally missed the autumn festival. I couldn't return in time and missed the opportunity to enter the family lin. I'm very disappointed." "You?" Kong Yu was completely speechless. On the other side, Liang Qizhu and Bu Kong stood under a big tree and looked at the endless starry sky full of stars. "Kong, I'm sorry. I wronged you," Liang Qizhu said softly with an ashamed expression. He was too ashamed to face him. Bu Kong smiled gently. "You may know a person for a long time without understanding his heart. I know your heart, and you know mine. That's enough. Actually, you shouldn't have come to Kanjia Mountain. If you didn't come, there would still be hope for the position of the faction leader," Liang Qizhu said with some regret. "I remember that night many years ago. You and I also made a promise under the starry sky that we would compete fairly for the position of the faction leader without forsaking our brotherhood. I shouldn't have doubted you." Bu Kong shook his head. "If I didn't come, Man Boyu would have recommended me. He's that kind of person. Actually, I already knew what kind of person he was, but I've always been delusional. I thought that as long as I was loyal to him, he would repay me." As he spoke, Bu Kong turned to look at Shun Lian, who was standing by the bonfire not far away. He smiled bitterly and said, "What's more, with Shun Lian around, I have no hope of becoming the gang leader." Liang Qizhu said in a low voice, "Now that I think about it, I have a feeling that Shi Songtian's case is not as simple as it seems. It is very likely that he is a Shun Lian." Before he could finish, Bu Kong waved his hand and interrupted him. "That's not important. What's important is that Shun Lian let us all see the Man Boyu clearly. From the moment we agreed to come to Kanjia Mountain with him, we were already on his boat. He's the new gang leader, and we have to pledge our loyalty to him from now on," Bu Kong said as he looked up at the endless starry sky. Liang Qizhu remained silent. Inside the carriage, "Sai, I've finally dodged this calamity." Gong Sun Ji let out a long sigh of relief. He drank a mouthful of wine, spat and scolded. "Man Boyu, you old bastard. You want to harm us?" "No way." Yuana nodded. He thought for a while and said doubtfully, "I don't understand how Shi Songtian got the inside information. Even we didn't notice Man Boyu's conspiracy." Rong Chun chuckled and said, "Let me ask you, who is Wei Yinzong's man? Shun Lian's man? Do you think it shouldn't be wrong?" The person who got the inside information was Shun Lian, not Shi Tsongtian. He arranged for Wu Yinzong to frame Shi Tsongtian and took the opportunity to expose the inside information, letting everyone know about Man Boyu's conspiracy. Rong Chun said in a low voice, as if he had just realized something. Gong Sun Ji said in surprise, "Why would he do that? He's Man Boyu's new favorite. There's no reason for him to betray Man Boyu." Rong Chun was speechless and said, "This is actually what I don't understand. However, this is not important anymore. What's important is that we all owe Shun Lian a big favor. This guy is not simple. We have to return the favor we owe him." Yuan nodded and said, "We were all dragged out by him to attack Kanjia Mountain. All along the way, Shun Lian was our leader. Unknowingly, this guy seems to be a head above us." Gong Sun Ji and Rong Chun thought about it carefully. All along the way, it was indeed Shun Lian who gave the orders. They gradually formed a habit of obeying him. Could this be Shun Lian's goal? He wants to be the faction leader. Rong Chun suddenly quivered. From Shi Tsongtian to Jin Renyu, Shun Lian had unknowingly completely overtaken Man Boyu and dominated the limelight. How cunning! Kanjia Mountain Snake Cave. The giant snake demon climbed up the cliff as if it was flat ground. In a flash, it arrived at the entrance of the cave. It hissed and flicked its tongue, reporting to the inside. "My king, there are flames flashing at the foot of the mountain. It seems like many people are coming." "I know." There was light in the cave. It was as bright as day. There was a spacious cave with a stone bed, a stone table, and other items. Jin Renyu sat in front of the dressing table. She wore a dark green gauze dress and was combing her hair in front of the bronze mirror. There were no wounds on her body. There was no fear in her eyes. She was clean. At this moment, a young and handsome man walked over. He took the comb in her hand and slowly combed her hair. Jin Renyu was expressionless. She said faintly, "Krite, don't waste your time. I will not marry you. You can force me or even take my body, but I will never fall in love with you." The handsome man chuckled and said, "I don't care if you love me or not. I just want you to know that I am deeply in love with you. Since you love me, then let me go home." Jin Renyu suddenly turned around and stared at the handsome man. His delicate face was like a scholar who had walked out from an ancient painting. He exuded an enchanting aura. If Jin Renyu did not know that the handsome man in front of her was a snake demon, she might have been tempted. Krite laughed and said, "Until you fall in love with me, I will not let you go." "You." Jin Renyu turned her head away in anger. She could not help but grab the human ancestor pendant hanging in front of her chest and cursed in a low voice. "The great human ancestor will not let you go." Krite was slightly taken aback. He said in surprise, "Oh, you believe in the human ancestor?" Jin Renyu was shocked. "You know about the human ancestor too?" Krite laughed loudly and asked, "What do you think the human ancestor is?" Jin Renyu raised her chin and said proudly, "The human ancestor is the greatest existence. The human ancestor created the human race and taught the human race how to raise goo, refine goo, and use goo. He allowed the human race to survive in this world where demons roam freely. Until now, the human race already has the strength to contend against the demons." Krite did not speak for a long time and only sighed. "What do you mean by sighing?" Jin Renyu's aura weakened as she asked suspiciously. Krite thought for a while and said, "Let me tell you a story." Saying so, his shadow moved and turned into a lump of ink-like mist, pouncing on the rock wall. Immediately, a black image appeared on the rock wall, constantly changing and displaying a vivid scene. Snake Shadow Goo. Jin Renyu's pupil shrunk. Krite had told her before that his companion Goo was the Snake Shadow Goo. This was the first time she saw Krite use it. It was actually so interesting. Krite spoke tirelessly. Following his narration, the scene on the rock wall continued to change. It was like an illustration in a storybook. A long time ago, there were no humans at that time. There were countless strong demons on the ground. They fought and killed each other as they continued to evolve and grow. Eventually, A group of demons gained the ability to transform. Jean Renew snorted. Transforming into a human, right? Krite laughed. There were no humans at that time. Do you think demons could transform into humans? Jean Renew thought for a while and was speechless. Demons with the ability to transform could actually transform into many forms. For example, they could transform into a sinister wind, a blade of grass, or even a cloud in the sky. These are all transformations. The greatest use of transformations is to reduce consumption. It is beneficial for large demons to store more life energy. One day, a transformations demon appeared. He was very interested in a certain thing that was drifting between heaven and earth. That thing was a goo. Goo, to demons, is like fireflies to you humans. Watching them glow and dance in the wilderness, they are very far away from your lives and have no practical use. Demons had long noticed that once they grow to a certain stage, they would give birth to a companion goo. But what use the companion goo had, and how to use it they did not know. For a long time, demons treated companion goo like how humans treat lice on their bodies. They hated it so much that once the companion goo was born, they would immediately throw it away. However, that demon was different. He was very interested in goo. He felt that goo was very mystical and contained the essence of heaven and earth. Thus, he began to try to get close to the goo. Over a long period of time, he gradually discovered that the goo had different degrees of intimacy with different forms of demons. The scene on the rock wall began to change rapidly. That demon began to change into different forms, from a grain of sand to a blade of grass to a tree. He continued to change his form. No one knew how many forms he tried. In the end, the scene on the rock wall began to gather and finally turned into a human form. That demon found a form, an extremely perfect form. In this form, the goo would naturally get close to him and fuse with him. In other words, the goo would enter his body and open his aperture. Seeing this scene, Jean Renew's mind buzzed, and he was completely stupefied. Krite laughed. In this world where there are tens of thousands of races, only humans have an affinity with goo. Have you ever thought of the reason? Jean Renew's hair stood on end. The Renzu that you believe in is also a demon. Renzu was the first demon to discover the secret of goo. After he turned into human form, he raised goo, refined goo, and used goo. Thus, he obtained unparalleled strength and was invincible in the world. Renzu exterminated one race after another. He was too powerful, too terrifying, to the extent that other races, including the demon race, had no choice but to unite and resist him. At this time, Renzu, who was the enemy of the world, created a mystical species in order to obtain even greater strength. Using his human form as the template, Renzu created the human race. This was the origin of the human race. Renzu taught the human race the secrets of goo, protecting the human race in his territory and allowing them to flourish. Every time a strong goo master appeared, Renzu would eat them and absorb their primeval essence, using this to obtain even more terrifying strength. Chapter 130. It is not like that, you are lying. The pale-faced Jean Renew kept shaking her head as she listened. Her waterfall-like hair swayed back and forth. Her face was filled with shock. Renzu was actually a monster. Renzu also ate humans. Jean Renew could not believe it, or rather, she was not willing to believe it, but in the depths of her heart, she still somewhat believed Krite. And this was the source of her pain. As a devout believer, Renzu was the light of hope in her heart, a supreme existence. And now, her hope had turned into a nightmare. This is the truth. The truth has always been bloody and incomparably cruel. It cannot be said that Renzu sect believers are stupid. It can only be said that they do not understand the truth. Krite sighed with deep meaning. Hearing this, Jean Renew was on the verge of collapse. Her faith was crazily shaking and collapsing. You are lying to me, she said weakly. The incomparably handsome Krite chuckled. He did not argue. Instead, he suddenly asked, do you know why the monsters call humans livestock? Jean Renew said woodenly, Because the evil monsters treat us like livestock. Krite shook his head. You are wrong. When a human race was born, the only one who had the qualifications to name your race was Rinzu. That's right, Rinzu named you livestock. As the name implies, you are raised as food to be eaten. Jean Renew could not help but shiver. She felt all the blood in her body turn cold. And human, a long time ago, it was actually a supreme title, referring to Rinzu. At that time, the myriad of races would turn pale at the mention of human. Rinzu's terror swept through the world. The myriad of races were in danger, living in constant fear. Whoever was strong, they would learn from them. The myriad of races feared Rinzu, but they continued to learn from Rinzu, desiring to obtain Rinzu's power. Thus, the monsters started to transform into human form. Raising goo, refining goo, using goo, they gradually grasped the mysteries of goo. So much so that now, whenever the word transformation is mentioned, it means to transform into a human form. At the same time, everyone has also discovered that the human ancestors' new race, which is your human race, is growing at an extremely fast pace. The Zhen Yuan condensed within your body is rich and pure. Devouring you is beneficial to their evolution and growth. In the long years that followed, almost all the races hunted and preyed on the humans. They also learned from the human ancestors' methods and kept some humans in a region, allowing them to reproduce and grow. When they grew to be delicious, they were caught and eaten. Of course, the human ancestor is not someone to be trifled with. The human race that he raised will always be the strongest. He led the human race to conquer the world, sweeping through the world. He was invincible and invincible. The other races were in danger and were gradually forced into desperate straits. Out of desperation, a demon finally came up with a good idea. That was to join forces with the humans to fight against the human ancestor. However, the human race is very stubborn. Their worship, faith, and reverence for the human ancestor is deeply rooted. It is almost impossible for the human race to betray the human ancestor, unless they gave the human race the truth. Just like how I am telling you the truth now, they also told the human race the human ancestors' true colors. I have to say, the human race is a very strange race. They are stubborn, determined, and intelligent. At the same time, they are selfish, fearful, and hypocritical. When the human race learned the truth, they struggled for a period of time. In the end, their survival instincts overcame their lofty beliefs, and they betrayed the human ancestor. Krite placed his index finger under Jean Renew's chin and gently raised her head. He stared into her eyes and said with a serious expression, "The human ancestor created the human ancestor, but he never imagined that the human race would betray him and have the ability to kill him. This is like a fable. We may be destroyed by the things we love. This is the greatest tragedy of the Creator." Jean Renew shuddered. "What are you trying to say?" Krite's face showed hesitation. After a while, he said, "Have you ever thought that if demons can transform into humans, then can humans also transform into demons?" This thought gave Jean Renew goosebumps. She trembled and said, Is it possible? Of course it is possible. Don't forget, the human race was created by demons. In a sense, the human race is the perfect template, like a blank piece of paper that can be modified at will. Demon transformation is completely possible. Krite's eyes shone with a crazy light. Jean Renew looked up. Her face was as white as paper. She was terrified. She said with a trembling voice, "What do you want to do to me?" The shadow under the Krite King's feet flashed, and the shadow climbed onto the dressing table. Then, 2 wine glasses appeared out of thin air on the dressing table. Jean Renew saw that the wine glasses seemed to emerge from the shadow. There was an unknown liquid in the wine cups. There was no smell of alcohol, so it shouldn't be wine. Jean Renew looked at it and asked, "What is this?" Krite looked down the mountain and sighed. "There are a lot of people coming down the mountain. They should be here for you. Among them, there might be your relatives. I don't want to kill them, but I also don't want to be harassed by them." He turned to look at Jean Renew. "So, I will let you go. Are you serious?" Jean Renew was overjoyed. She stood up and hesitated. But didn't you say that you will never let me go? Krite nodded. Of course I don't want to let you go. But even if I keep you by my side, you won't fall in love with me. So, I plan to let the heavens decide our fate. Jean Renew's breath stagnated. How do you decide? Krite pointed at the two wine cups and said, These two liquids, judging from the color and taste, they are the same. But they are fundamentally different. You have to choose one of them and drink it. Jean Renew frowned. What's so different about them? Krite said seriously, This is a gift from a friend of mine. He told me that one of the liquids is very special. If a monster drinks it, it will increase its power. If a human drinks it, it will turn into a monster. And the other one is a poison. No matter if you're a monster or a human, you will definitely die if you drink it. You. Jean Renew was frightened. Didn't you just say that you will let me go? Krite had a sly look on his face. But I didn't say that I will let you go alive. Jean Renew was angry. What if I don't drink it? Then I can only kill all those people at the foot of the mountain. Among them, maybe your grandfather and your parents. Do you want them to be killed by me? The golden-ringed snake king smiled coldly with a murderous aura. No, I. Jean Renew panicked. Looking at the 2 cups of liquids, she broke out in cold sweat. In the end, she gritted her teeth and drank one of the cups. The liquid was very cold. It was so cold that it penetrated into her bones. She couldn't help but shiver. Then, the whole world turned upside down. She fell down and fell into Krite's arms. You are so unlucky. Before losing consciousness, Jean Renew heard Krite sigh. There was no emotion in his tone. After a long time, Jean Renew suddenly woke up. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a dense forest. Wild vegetation. She was lying in a field of flowers and plants. A thin mist shrouded the surroundings. The autumn wind blew from midair, causing the trees to sway back and forth. Leaves fluttered down and covered the ground. I'm not dead. Jean Renew shivered and sat up. After a while, she suddenly remembered what Krite said. She quickly looked at her body and touched her face. Then, she let out a long breath. Great, I didn't turn into a monster. I am still human. Jean Renew cried tears of joy as she stood up. Looking around, she suddenly realized that this was the place where she had abandoned corner of the Song dynasty in Zhoushan. She quickly found a direction and ran. A moment later, she suddenly stopped. Her gaze focused as she shouted, Brother Song, it's you. Not far away, corner of the Song dynasty was leading a few Gu masters. They were carefully moving forward according to the route in their memories. He was here because Shen Lian had decided to attack Sanya Mountain. They were the first group to send out. Their mission was to find the location of the snake cave. But to his surprise, a delicate shout resounded. Corner of the Song dynasty was first stunned, but when his gaze landed in front of him, he was completely stunned. Jean Renew. Corner of the Song dynasty recognized Jean Renew at a glance. Even though she had changed into female clothing, the heroic aura on her face had not changed. She was easy to recognize. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Jean Renew was actually still alive? Did I see a ghost? He quickly asked his companions. You guys saw her too, right? His companions were also stunned, asking in shock. She is Jean Renew? Corner of the Song dynasty was finally sure that he had not seen a ghost. Brother Song, are you here to find me? Jean Renew cried out loud, tears flowing down her face. Is my grandfather here? Where are my parents? Corner of the Song dynasty did not answer, instead asking in shock, Sister, how did you survive? Jean Renew was stunned by the question, not knowing how to answer. She had been in the snake cave for so many days, interacting with a monster day and night, yet she was still safe and sound. No one would believe it if they heard about it. Seeing that she was silent, Corner of the Song dynasty's gaze flashed, saying, Let's go down the mountain and leave this damned place before we talk. The wind in the mountain whistled and flowed. Shen Lian stood in the wind, his robes fluttering in the wind. He closed his eyes, his mind immersed in the wind, drifting with the wind into the distance. Shuttling through the dense mountain forest, it was as if an invisible net had enveloped and covered everything. It was all pervasive. Gradually, every part of Kanjia Mountain was touched by his wind. The all-pervasive wind is fast and easy to investigate. Give me 2 more days, and I should be able to explore the entire terrain of Kangia Mountain. Once I find the location of the snake cave, I should be able to clearly investigate the number and distribution of the monsters. Then, I can formulate a targeted strategy and use a lightning-fast strategy to quickly attack Kangia Mountain. It should not be a problem. Chapter 131. The all-pervasive wind has a wide, probing range. As long as the wind doesn't stop, there's almost no limit. The wind was divided into 2 types. One was the wind created by Shen Lian using his true essence. The other was the wind between heaven and earth. With the help of the wind between heaven and earth, Shen Lian could extend his probing range very far without using his true essence. However, a strong gust of wind swept into the forest and was blocked by the forest. The wind would weaken and become chaotic. Finally, it turned into a stream of air and dispersed. In fact, if there weren't those dense, towering trees on Kangia Mountain, which greatly weakened the wind, Shen Lian would be able to search the entire Kangia Mountain in a day. Suddenly, Shen Lian saw the corner of the Song Dynasty and the others. They retreated? Shen Lian felt strange. The wind swept past and instantly found the young woman beside the corner of the Song Dynasty. The search team, led by the corner of the Song Dynasty, was personally selected by him. This woman was not among them. Shen Lian pondered for a moment and immediately returned to the camp, ordering them to be on full alert. What's wrong? Why do we need to be on full alert? Kong Yu, Bu Kong, and the others gathered around Shen Lian. Shen Lian looked into the distance and said, I discovered that the corner of the Song Dynasty brought back a stranger. Gongsun Ji raised his eyebrows and said, just because of this? Liang Qizhu rolled his eyes and said unhappily, how can there be a stranger in the wilderness? It's very likely that he's a monster. This is the reason why Elder Shen ordered us to be on full alert. Can you use your brain a little? Gongsun Ji thought for a moment and was suddenly speechless. After a while, the corner of the Song Dynasty and the others appeared in their field of vision and went straight to Shen Lian's side. Elder Shen, we found Jin Renyu. The corner of the Song Dynasty waved his hand and shouted loudly. What, Jin Renyu? Everyone was very surprised. They couldn't help but be surprised. Increase the alert. Shen Lian took a deep breath and exclaimed in a low voice. This time, even Gongsun Ji became serious. Jin Renyu, who fell into the snake cave, did not die and came back intact. No matter how he thought about it, it was not normal. A moment later, the corner of the Song Dynasty and the others arrived. Jin Renyu looked somewhat nervous as he looked around. Shen Lian smiles gently and looks at the woman in the gauze dress. You are Jin Renyu? It's me. Jin Renyu stepped forward and bowed to the crowd. He couldn't help but ask, is my family here? No. Shen Lian shook his head. We are from New Kuan. Your grandfather asked us to come here. Jin Renyu's face was filled with disappointment. I want to go home. Can you send me home as soon as possible? Shen Lian smiled faintly and said, Of course, but before that, can I ask you a few questions? Jin Renyu took a deep breath and nodded slowly. Go ahead. Have you ever been captured by a snake demon? Yes. What happened after the snake demon captured you? I fainted at that time. When I woke up, I was in a car's cave. I have been locked up there ever since, Jin Renyu said briefly. What did you eat and drink when you were locked up there? Shen Lian is not easy to fool. Jin Renyu pursed her lips and said, There was food and water in the cave. It was Krite who prepared them for me. Hearing this, everyone frowned. Shen Lian's eyes flashed, but his expression was still calm. Krite didn't seem to hurt you. I'm curious why. Jin Renyu suddenly became shy. She wanted to say something, but stopped. She was too embarrassed to talk about what happened in the cave. She was loved at first sight by a monster and cared for in every possible way. She was shamelessly courted by a monster every day. Jin Renyu really couldn't say it. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly sounded. Come out! Shen Lian raised his sleeves, and the sky-devouring sword flashed out and slashed at Jin Renyu. Jin Renyu was so scared that she froze on the spot. In the next moment, the sky-devouring sword as fast as lightning brushed past her shoulder and fell on her shadow. Jean Renew looked down and was shocked to find that her shadow was wriggling. It arched up from the ground and transformed into a golden ring king cobra. At the critical moment, it jumped out and dodged the sky-devouring sword. "Snake!" Everyone widened their eyes and exclaimed in shock. The coroner of the Song dynasty and the others were even more frightened. This snake has been following them all the way. The golden ring king cobra fell 30 feet away and transformed into a young and handsome scholar again. The corner of its mouth was slightly raised with a cold smile. "You?" Jean Renew's expression changed drastically. Thinking that Kryde had been following her all the time, she shuddered and felt uncomfortable all over. She was pestered by a stalker. After Shun Lien's sword pierced through the air, the tip of the sword immediately turned and placed it on Jean Renew's neck. He shouted, "Did you side with the monster?" Jean Renew panicked and said, I didn't. It's him who has been pestering me." "Pestering you?" Shun Lien frowned and looked back and forth between the scholar and Jean Renew. He couldn't help but have a strange thought. What the hell? Did the wolf fall in love with the sheep? Clap, clap, clap. Kryde clapped 3 times and looked at Shun Lien with a smile. "The one who sent her to investigate Kanjia Mountain is you, right?" Shun Lien raised his chin and said proudly, "So what if it's me?" Kryde looked at Shun Lien curiously. "I really want to know, how did you find out that my cave is in Kanjia Mountain? I have always been cautious and never left any traces. For hundreds of years, no one has ever discovered my existence, let alone find out where my cave is." Shun Lien sneered. "Even 100 secrets will have a flaw. The mistake you made is actually very naive. Unfortunately, I won't tell you. Of course, before I kill you, I might be kind enough to let you know the reason behind your death." The golden-ringed Snake King raised his head and laughed heartily. It was as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He said coldly, "Then, if you die in my hands, I will torture you until you tell me the answer." Shun Lien's heart trembled, and he suddenly soared into the air. "Everyone, watch your step." With a loud roar, Shun Lien swung his sword backward. The sword of Eclipse slashed towards his shadow. Almost at the same time the sword fell, a giant golden-ringed snake demon drilled out from the shadow on the ground. It opened its bloody mouth and pounced straight at Shun Lien with a fishy smell. Whoosh! The heaven-eroding sword quickly grew in size and became as thin as a cicada's wing. With a horizontal slash, the upper jaw of the giant golden-ringed snake demon flew out and blood splashed everywhere. Almost at the same time, a giant golden-ringed snake demon drilled out from the shadows of everyone present. Even with Shun Lien's loud roar, many people were still caught off guard and were entangled by the giant golden-ringed snake demon. Some were even bitten. Miserable cries sounded one after another. Liang Qiju's 2 water sleeves bulged and opened, protecting his body and shaking the giant golden-ringed snake demon away. Then he raised the sleeves and fiercely whipped it. The sleeves seemed soft, but they were actually as hard as iron. With a bang, the giant golden-ringed snake demon was sent flying. The moment Bu Lingkong heard Shun Lien's roar, he moved his mind without thinking. Immediately, 3 demon puppets appeared out of thin air and protected him in 3 directions. The 3 demon puppets waved their weapons wildly and instantly tore the golden-ringed snake demon into pieces. Kong Yu, on the other hand, was entangled. But almost at the same time, silver light burst out from his palm. The golden-ringed snake demon's body with lightning, and in an instant, its entire body was charred black and smoking, twitching as it let go of Kong Yu. Bien Chanyu cried out in shock. She was an arrow-type Gu master and had the rainbow dress Gu, allowing her to move nimbly. But once she encountered a close combat situation and was restrained, she was basically at the mercy of others. After Shun Lien killed the golden-ringed snake demon, his gaze swept around, and he came to Bien Chanyu's side. With a swing of his sword, he cut apart the golden-ringed snake demon and saved Bien Chanyu. Next, he pounced towards Yuanin and saved him as well. "Save me." Gong Sunji fell to the ground and was tightly entangled by the golden-ringed snake demon, his face turning purple. Liang Qizhu rushed over and waved his sleeves crazily, causing both the golden-ringed snake demon and the golden-ringed snake demon to roll on the ground. The golden-ringed snake demon, however, did not let go of Gong Sunji. At this time, a demon puppet rushed over and cut apart the golden-ringed snake demon, saving Gong Sunji. I was bitten by a golden-ringed snake. It's poisonous. Gong Sunji screamed and hurriedly took out several small bottles and poured medicine into his mouth. Quickly save him. Shun Lian's body was like a ghost, constantly appearing beside others. His devouring heaven sword was incomparably sharp and could cut apart the golden-ringed snake demon in one strike, saving many people in an instant. However, the golden-ringed snake demon's attack was too bizarre and too fast. It was simply impossible to guard against it. Moreover, the golden-ringed snake demons were all highly poisonous, and many people still died unnatural deaths. Kong Yu, Liang Qizhu, Buling Kong, and the others were also in a hurry to save people. Krite raised his head and sneered. The golden-ringed snake demon clan has always been inexhaustible. Can you kill them all? As soon as his laughter fell, suddenly more snakes emerged from everyone's shadows. You're courting death. Shun Lian roared and suddenly rose from the ground, leaping into the air. His devouring heaven's sword shook, shaking out a mysterious sword flower. Suddenly, the sky was filled with a rain of bullets, shooting in all directions, hitting the golden-ringed snake demon on the ground, accurately piercing through the golden-ringed snake demon's head. It was only a large-scale sword attack, but all the golden-ringed snake demons were killed. Krite's expression stiffened, staring deeply at Shun Lian. A look of surprise flashed across his face. Come on, let me see how many snakes you have. Shun Lian madly rushed out, rushing towards the golden-ringed snake demon. Bu Lingkong and Liang Qizhu looked at each other, then also rushed out, surrounding the golden-ringed snake demon in a triangle formation. That's all for today. See you next time. The golden-ringed snake demon curled his lips, his body sinking down, disappearing into his own shadow. The moment his entire body disappeared, the shadow on the ground also disappeared. At the last moment, the golden-ringed snake demon winked at Jinrenyu. Remember, I am your creator. Will you fall in love with me? Or will you destroy me? The golden-ringed snake demon's voice suddenly sounded in Jinrenyu's heart. She suddenly jumped away, staring at her own shadow, her hair standing on end. Ran away. Shun Lian's gaze swept across. The moment he landed, he twisted his body, grabbed someone beside the corner of the Song dynasty, and jumped up again, his whole body flying towards Kanjia Mountain, setting off a violent wind. Liang Qizhu and Bu Lingkong stopped, looking at Shun Lian, who was rapidly becoming smaller in the sky. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. I can't catch up to him. Boom! Shun Lian landed in the mountain forest. The earth shook violently. Birds and beasts flew away in fright. He landed at the place where Jinrenyu appeared. Elder. The person who was caught by Shun Lian had a shocked expression. He swallowed his saliva, looking at him like he was looking at a monster. Fu Chongshan, your bird language goo can communicate with birds. Quickly help me find the location of the snake cave. Shun Lian threw away that panicked subordinate and quickly used the all-pervasive wind to search for the snake cave. Yes. Fu Chongshan quickly walked to the side, imitating a few bird calls. Not long later, a multicolored bird flew over, landing on his shoulder. One man and one bird, chirping nonstop. Not long later, Fu Chongshan was overjoyed. Elder Shun, we found the right place. The snake cave is nearby. This little bird saw many giant snakes roaming around. Many of its companions were eaten by the giant snakes. Which direction? Over there. Fu Chongshan raised his hand and pointed forward. Shun Lian turned into a whirlwind and rushed out. A moment later, he suddenly stopped. There was a cliff in front. The mountain wind whistled. Shun Lian suddenly saw many giant snake demons lying on the cliff. There was even a cave entrance. The nest is well hidden. Shun Lian snorted, grabbing a vine. He quickly slid down. Quickly look. Someone is coming down. Many snake demons lying on the cliff moved. Their tongues flickered, their eyes flickering with a terrifying red light. Die, all of you. Shen Lian took out his crimson flame saber. The flames burned fiercely. With a swoosh, a huge pillar of fire shot out, engulfing the entire cliff. Ah! The snake demons were burned by the flames. They screamed and fell down the cliff while emitting flames. Shun Lian came to the entrance of the cave and entered it in a flash. Immediately, the scene in the cave entered his eyes. There were many living furniture, stone tables, stone stools, and stone beds, except for Krite.